All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it is Friday, y'all know it is time for the. If it is the third Friday, y'all know it is time for the Mayor's Forum. So, welcome to All Politics of Local. We're gonna have a pretty uh, impactful show tonight. Of course, we're waiting on the mayor to come through, and some of the other folks with the show. But we wanted to get started. Of course, there are a couple of things that we want to talk about tonight. There are a couple of things that are happening in the news that, as you all know, are are pretty intense. Um, but we want to give the rundown. So obviously, we've got a number of things that are going to occur. First up, of course, is going to be the mayor's forum. We're going to talk tonight with the mayor about a couple of things. Obviously, we want to talk with him about, his inaugural for the third term. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What does that mean for him? And then, of course, we want to talk about, talk to him about some of the things that are in the news, like what's going on down in Mississippi with the newly found arrest warrant that has not been served. So we'll talk a little bit about that with him as well. Then we want to talk about the brother in Akron, Ohio, who was shot. Shot at 90 times, I believe, hit like 60 times. 25-year-old Jalen Walker. So we want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about some things that are going on locally around the country as well, and then talk about some things that are happening inside the city, of course. And we just had the 1967 anniversary uprising march here in the city. So we're going to talk to some folks about that as well, and then we'll talk about a new play, a new musical that's taking place with TaNisha Fordham. We'll talk with her as well, and then of course we're going to talk religion and activism, right? We're going to have a conversation about that, and try and get into that with some folks, and then of course we're going to close it out. We're going to have brother Zaid talk with us tonight, along with DJ Rhino. We're going to talk about the state of hip hop. So we're going to have a pretty impactful show tonight with regards to everything that's going on. So, and then of course, we're going to talk about uh, the state of Donald Trump a little bit, right? Want to talk about, we heard that his first wife, I believe the mother of his three children, had went home to be with the Lord. So we want to talk a little bit about that as well. But tonight, obviously, we're waiting on the mayor. So when the mayor come through, we'll get into a couple of those conversations with the mayor. And so I mean, right now, some of the things we're dealing with here in the city, of course, as you all know, it's pretty hot in the city. Um, and so there are a lot of things that are taking place to get folks cooled off. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Jalen Walker, right? What's going on with Jalen Walker? Because I believe that peace, brother Zaid.
Greetings, everybody.
Can you hear me, brother? Peace,
Yes,
brother.
sir. Can y'all hear me
So
all right?
I was
All right.
starting as yeah, I can hear you. So as we wait for the mayor, I was starting off because I know Larry did a march in regards to Jalen Walker tonight, the brother out of Arizona who was shot. at 90 times, I believe hit 60 times.
Yeah, yes,
And
messy case. Yeah,
so,
they're actually marching right now.
oh, okay. Yeah. So I know that. So do you know the latest in that, and what's going on up there?
The latest that I've heard is that the town has been put under curfew. Uh, they and in one of the marches, the father of Jacob Blake Senior. Jacob Blake is a young brother who was shot and paralyzed in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Bianca
Right.
Austin, the aunt of Breonna Taylor. They have an organization called Families United Against Police Brutality, and
Right.
they were both. It was well, actually it was four folks. There were two other activists. One was from Minnesota, and I think the other one was local. Were attacked and arrested at one of the demonstrations. So Akron is still a mess. The officers involved are on administrative leave, pending the investigation. That's what they always do. Um,
Have they been ID'd as of yet?
no, the identification hasn't been given out to the public as to who they were,
Wow.
and it was a bunch of them. I mean, just from the video
Yeah, I know.
footage, it was
I
a
know.
convergence of like several cars, and just from the character, it's not just the volume of the shots that were fired at this brother, but also,
Right.
I mean, this was an open air space on a highway. A whole lot of people could have gotten hit by that. It was really a wild, messy,
Right.
destructive, crazy scene, and it's why the importance of getting these police under control is
Right.
still the huge order of the day. You know,
Right.
so it's messy. It's messy. It's messy. It remains a lot of stuff holding.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out why is it taking so long for them to ID who these folks are, you know, and how many
Yeah, I
police
mean,
officers exactly it was.
the footage is available.
Right. I saw that, but normally what happens is after a week or so, we'd find out who the officers are, who, and I don't know, maybe they're doing this because they're afraid that it may break out, some sort of violence up in Akron, Ohio. But I'm hearing that there was only one black police officer on that scene, and but they all unloaded their guns, and that's just absolutely incredible, man.
It's crazy.
Like, how many bullets does it take to kill someone,
90
or to
shots,
stop someone?
right? 90 shots and 60 of them hit him.
Yeah.
There's a sister who's a friend of ours. She had been in the People's Organization for Progress. She's in the Uhuru movement now, named Lisa Davis. And Lisa's from East Orange. Father was a police officer, and he always said
Right.
to her and to his family, if someone is running away from you, they are not posing a threat, right?
Right.
There's no need to go to that excessive space that they so often go to with us and do what they do, you know.
Right.
And this is just another example, another case, another day in the life of our folks trying to be black in this crazy place called America.
Right. Right. Yeah, just absolutely incredible. And so I mean, what, and so Larry was marching really just kind of keep this in front of folks.
Solidarity, solidarity
Okay.
march. Yes, it's a part of the
Okay.
national outcry to demand full investigation, state and federal, and independent,
Right.
to bring these fools to justice.
And so, and on another front, I heard that the prosecutor today in Mississippi said that he was not interested in pursuing any prosecution in regards to that open warrant that was found. That he's not interested in prosecuting Carolyn Dunham, Carolyn Bryant Dunham at all. I mean, which is absolutely incredible.
Carol and Brian Dunham, for the benefit of our listeners who are not afraid of familiar with the name, is the white woman who claimed that of the young Emmett Till, who was 14 years old back in 1955 when that horrible incident took place. It was a white woman that said that he made an illicit gesture towards her, and that statement that she made led to that young that we can imagine, and it ultimately triggered the beginning of the mass character of the civil rights movement.
Right.
She has come forward and said, what did she say? She that it actually didn't happen the way she originally said it, and then like, well, why is she not being? The whole country's asking why is she not being held accountable? It cost this young man his life.
Right.
His life.
Right.
Outraged the entire country, and
Right.
and that question is still a valid question. There's no statute of limitations on what, Mr. Lawyer?
Right. On the warrant. But let me ask you this, Zaid.
Um,
They still have an open warrant on Asada Shakur, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
then does that mean that they're not interested in pursuing that warrant? See what I'm saying?
You
You
would
see what I'm
think it's
saying?
good for over here, it's good for over there. Not in
Yeah.
America, baby. No, sir.
Right.
Yeah,
No, not
yeah.
and that's the level of injustice,
Sada's going to be
right?
75 tomorrow, by the way. Sada will
Wow.
be 75 tomorrow.
Wow.
I haven't
Wow.
seen her in over 20 years. I've missed my big sister incredibly, right?
Wow.
But she will be 75 tomorrow since you lifted her name. She shares a birthday with the unconquerable Ida B. Wells.
Wow. 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 I didn't even know, man, but I was just
And the
like, yo,
great Dr. Yeah, that's outrageous.
yeah. Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. So,
I know
but
I know this woman is an old woman now, but they can forgive each other.
right.
They can let bygones be bygones with each other, but that doesn't apply to America's black folks.
That's right.
Does
That's
not
right.
apply.
And yeah, and sort of what it seems like is because they're saying she is uh 70 in her 70s, so therefore they're saying, well, she's an old woman, so just let it go. But Zaid, we got freedom fighters who are in prison. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
Who
That's
are in
right.
their 70s. You know what I
Folks
mean?
may not know the name of Ed Poindexter. In prison for
Right,
51 years. His anniversary is this week.
right,
51 years in prison. And there's so much evidence out now on how he was a clear COINTELPRO target in Omaha, Nebraska. We
right,
can go on down the list. Dr. Mutulu Shakur, Imam Jamil El-Amin, Ronza Bowers. Ronza actually did his time and due to be released back during the days of George W. Bush. And they
wow,
just the federal parole board just will not let him go.
wow,
Just won't let him go. So it's we could go on. We could be on that for a minute, for a
wow,
good minute, easy.
wow. That is absolutely incredible, man. So I mean, they might not be interested in pursuing justice for her, but they're not interested in giving justice to let political prisoners out. Peace, Chris. Welcome to the show, my brother.
What's going on? I sound like y'all were. It sounds like you
Chris
all
Randall
were.
is
It sounded like you all were wondering why the justice system doesn't work well. We've been trying to figure it out for a long time. I wonder why they won't let out
about
political.
500 years.
Wonder why they won't let out political prisoners, but they will ignore arrest warrants for particular
Hmm.
people.
We were just talking about it, right? You
You
know,
know, remember a few years ago we had Professor Anthony Farley on, the legal professor,
yeah,
and he was trying to help all of us and the audience understand that the law is in fact an illusion at the same time being a fact.
right.
What we've now learned is that the law is a byproduct of European imagination. And as a result, it can be manipulated by European imagination.
I.e., Donald Trump.
100%.
To
So,
put it
so
mildly.
So, for me, I give you an example. At an institute that I'm currently working at, we had to, in order to deal with students, we had to work through a bunch of different certifications and background checks and all sorts of things, right? If I had ever made a statement about like making jokes about touching women inappropriately, obviously I wouldn't be employed, and I don't think I should be.
That's right.
But if you're from a different ethnic community, you can be the president of the United States or Supreme Court justice.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, at a certain point, I'm reading this book right now by Reverend Albert Clegg, and he talks about how the only way to stop being the only way for a powerful group to stop mistreating a powerless group is for that group to organize and take its own power. That's all it is.
Yeah, but one would wonder. What'd you say, Zaid? Zaid, you froze, Zaid.
No, I just. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah, you was freezing for a minute, but go ahead.
Albert Clegg is one of the fathers that we. Okay, yeah, he's one of the fathers that we call modern Black liberation theology.
He's the person to actually coin the term.
Yes, that's right. Out of Detroit, it's a part of that Detroit's legendary Black nationalist community, right? It was close to Malcolm, and a bunch of came out of that matrix in the 50s and 60s, and it later migrated to Atlanta, and it's still there. I think they're still in several cities.
The Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Yes, right. So I'm sorry. Finish your thought. I was just interjecting the background.
He said that if you're powerless, the only way a powerful community will stop treating a powerless community badly is if that community gets organized and seizes its power.
Right.
And at a certain point, all of us who are students of Black history, particularly Black liberatory history, are aware of the legendary name Assata Shakur, right?
We just talked about it. Zaid says she'll be 75 tomorrow, right, Zaid?
That's right.
If you read Assata's autobiography, though, there's a moment where she's been shot in the chest, she's arrested, she's chained to a bed, and the police are beating her. And she says, I want to call my mother. And the officer who was assaulting her says, "Oh, you have a mother?"
Wow.
And at that point, what we realized through that particular moment is that is a conversation about dehumanization. You don't have the same family ties, access to humanity, access to human rights as other people. You just don't. So the question is, how do you orient yourself and organize yourself when that reality comes to the forefront? And the rest of it that's it. Like, we know that the woman who reported Emmett Till to those murderers is a criminal.
Yeah,
but
Carolyn Bryant Dunham.
But the question is, do we have the power to hold her accountable for her criminality?
Yeah,
that's
right. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And obviously we don't. I mean, we see that and I understand it was a young Black man who found that open warrant.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you're right. We don't have the power to call it a justice. And you notice it's not really a national a national outcry. I'm saying particularly by people like Reverend Jackson and all of them. Remember, a lot of these people built their careers off of the name Emmett Till.
That's right.
And we don't hear a national outcry about it. And I sort of wonder, why is that?
No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say it.
I mean, think about it. Why is that? right? I mean, the way I learned about Emmett Till, right, was really from people like Reverend Jackson and them, right, who basically talked about that whole civil rights movement and Emmett Till. I mean, you could go back and look at any number of his speeches, and that name is being invoked. And the way young people heard about Emmett Till was through Lil Wayne. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That's how young people heard about it.
Funny enough, right? Imagine if Wayne hadn't made those terrible comments. But I also
our generation probably might not have heard of him, right?
But what happens consistently is my biggest critique with my elders is they seem to have a very loud voice if the thing that they're upset about is coming from a young black mouth. But if it's not, they seem to have all these disabilities negotiated. I don't know why that is.
Right.
I know what Reverend Jackson thinks about it. I know what Reverend Jackson thinks about hip hop music.
Yeah, I think you do. Right.
So it's just this weird matrix of ideas. And I also think that one of the major reasons why the church itself and why older institutions and civil rights leaders, etc., with really the exception of Minister Farrakhan,
right,
have been excluded from the modern Black liberation struggle movements is for this exact reason. Is because the older generation has been silent as it relates to the reality of the modern anti-Black system that we're existing in.
And you know what's interesting is in the 90s though we were, and you remember this, Zaid, we were extremely boisterous in the 90s, right? And we were calling on people like Reverend Jackson and that. I mean, that's how people like Conrad and the Nation of Islam, and really why the Million Man March was able to happen, right? Because of the violence that was happening amongst us, but it was also about coming out of that crack era. But it was also about talking about Black folk organizing for power, and now that most of us are now the 50-year-olds. The problem is that a lot of us have gone silent because we're chasing a pension now, and so we become afraid, just like they were afraid that the younger people that are coming behind us. But remember, those younger brothers coming behind us now are extremely lost because they're not even using words like conscious anymore. They're using words like woke, right? I'm woke, as opposed to being conscious and totally aware of what's happening around you. And remember, there's a difference between that and folks being able to say that they actually understand what is going on. There's a difference in that.
Yeah, but the fundamental difference is, right? Often what I've noticed consistently is losing my parents young and all of that. Whenever I think I'm gonna post something crazy on Facebook, and I have that thought every now and again, not often, but every now and again I have a thought. And I think, Ed Riley gonna see that, Baba Zaid gonna see that, Donna Williams gonna say that, and then I'm gonna have to answer for this. This is gonna be, and I'm gonna have to take. I don't want to hold this. You know what?
Yep.
Let me delete.
Yep. That's true.
I just walked out of the lecture, and as soon as I walked out of the lecture, I came over here to do this for you, Ed Riley. And you know what's funny? Every time I think I'm by myself, I get a text from one of y'all that's like, "Hey, just want you to know, yeah, we got your number.
Right.
Yes, we do. Oh yeah, we will. If there's any shenanigans or tomfoolery come out your mouth, we're gonna deal with you."
Right. And you not to cut you off, Chris, but John said that to me, like 30 years ago, Zaid. He said that, we were talking about checking each other as friends, right, Chris? And he said, man, He said the benefit of having friends like us. He said at least you know when I get ready to do something crazy, you got enough sense to say, "Yo, man, I think that's crazy. I don't think you should do that." Right? And like you're saying, Chris, you know that if you think of and remember, a lot of these young brothers and sisters don't think about what they're putting up online. But at least you conscious of that and say, man, if I put that up there, somebody may check me on that.
Yeah, but see, that's the difference. I have the benefit of the community. So there's an ancient African proverb, Baba Zaid made me aware of it. It said, if the young person doesn't feel the warmth of the community, they'll set it on fire to feel it. Right? So what I'm packaging is, yes, I'm conscious of what I put on the internet, but that can't be separated from what I'm gonna have to deal with if I'm not.
Right.
I would have to go off the grid. Hey, right. Where can I go in this country? You can't reach me.
Yeah. Well, that's all of us, right? I mean, we all now are just a click away from wherever we are.
If I literally acted a fool somewhere, all of you all know people who can go get me in that state. Right?
That's true.
And so I'm aware of what that means.
Yeah, no, I think and that accountability that we have is healthy and important, and it's an accountability that's missing 100%. In other places where we need it.
100%.
Yeah, I got you.
And I can't pretend like that wouldn't be the case, because it's going down like full flat tires. If I write the wrong thing on Al Gore's internet, it's going down.
Right. Yeah. And it's weird because you saying it's Al Gore's.
Well, yeah, that's who came up. Yeah. Yeah. But no, but I also I can say, this with no fear of trepidation. At Raleigh, the first time I was in real political environments as an adult and being able to be aware of what I was doing, you took me. Right? The reason I have reverence for figures like Reverend Sharpton or Reverend Jackson, any of those people in real time, not the way I was raised, but really have reverence for them. You took me to see those people.
Yeah. I did that for a couple of young people who, have gone into those environments, and they said, wow, man, I've only seen these people, in newspapers. I've only seen them on the news, but to be in that environment, is different in and of itself. To be able to be a part of that, and the other thing, that's almost like if you think about it, right? Like we had the benefit of an Amiri Baraka, right? There are people around the world that didn't have that benefit, right? But you think about that, Zaid, and for some of us, I don't know, right? Like around the world, right? He's major and he's important, right? Particularly to the culture around consciousness, around nationalism, right? Around poetry, around art, all of that. But think about the kids who've never met him. Think about people who read his stuff, Zaid.
Right.
Or
the communities that didn't have those communities that didn't have those traditions, Yeah.
Right. And when you think about
real
that,
stuff. I was talking to some young people today on my other job.
Yeah, but the question becomes, and this is why it's always interesting to me when people even have analysis generally about millennials and Gen Zs and the like. When people have these analyses, it's interesting because it's like, we are literally the children of the crack era, and then the children of the opioid era, and then the children of the mass incarceration era.
Yeah.
And so, look, and this is not a joke. Ed Riley, you're the oldest black man I know. You and Zaid, some of the oldest black men I know, like personally know.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't know. The trees of my generation. I do not know any black men. I do not know any black men that I can think of right offhand who are older than you, like much older than you. I can't think of it.
Wow.
I'm aware of them, but I don't know them personally.
Wow. And would you say, Chris, that that's true of your generation? Would you say that's true?
I want you to know how scary it is, Ed. I'm an elder in my community.
Whoa. I can't even believe you said that, Zaid.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all know me. Y'all know me when I'm being bombastic. Y'all know when I'm being bombastic, but I'm talking about for real.
Right.
If I go to Baltimore, where I'm from, there are kids who think I'm elderly.
Wow.
Well, listen. You know, your started calling me Bob in my 40s, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute now. I couldn't slow the train down. You know, we usually don't get that.
Now put that in context. I'm almost a decade younger than that, and I'm Baba now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now what we're talking about is what is your relationship to wisdom, to age, to the proliferation of information, to any of that? What's your relationship to all that?
To staying alive.
So I would argue when I think about where I am politically and where I am in my development, at a moment where you are quite literally.
He lost his connections.
Yeah, we lost music in the middle of making a good point too. It looked like. Yeah.
But you know, I would be interested, Mike, if you can hear us. I would be interested in knowing, because you are a generation behind Chris. I'd be interested in knowing, is that the same for you in your 20s? I mean, do you know any older folks? If you can hear us, I'd be interested in knowing, man. You know, that because for him to say that, you know, and I think that might be one of the reasons why we now have 40-year-old grandfathers.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
You know.
Oh yes.
Because when I was coming
sexy
through,
grandmothers and they still in their 30s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lost you for a second. You're back now.
So what I was saying, you can finish your point, Chris, but what I was saying was that might be one, you know, when you were saying that, you know, how old people are, we're the oldest folks that you know. But, you know, and I thought that was strange too, Zaid, when I was coming through. Like, why all of a sudden we were having all these young 40-year-old grandfathers, and somebody would say that they were a grandfather. I said, well, how old are you? He'd be like, yo, I'm 40. I'd be like, whoa, like you're a grandfather. And you remember young people when they became grandfathers, I remember they didn't want to be known as a grandfather or a grandmother. Right? They would tell their kids, don't call me that.
That's right.
Now they don't care.
And we have a lot of healing to do.
Yeah.
A lot of learning and a lot of a need for the reappreciation of learning and wisdom, and the cultivation and the respect and protection of the wise amongst us, you know, to get back to where we need to go. Because this, you know, this white man, you know, your friend is not it's not playing.
No,
He's not playing.
And because, you know, they are for, I mean, and that's why they got that whole replacement theory out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
They really believe that what they did to those to the indigenous brothers and sisters, they are afraid that that's going to happen to them, right? They've damn near made our brothers and sisters extinct, put them on reservations, right? Put them outside of the country almost, right? Think about that. Took their land, brought black folk to work it, and think that and think that no one is supposed to remember that, and most certainly no one is supposed to teach it. Think about that for a
Absolutely,
minute.
absolutely. And you know, and you can't. The truth crushed to the earth is going to rise again,
Yeah,
as the book said. But you would think that, you know, some one of the things I'll say, you know, because I don't want to be categorical in any of this, because there are human factors in this. We should. I want to be positive, because you can't do this revolutionary stuff and not be positive. Just a couple summers ago, our kids lit the whole country on, you know, on fire to unprecedented dimensions with protests around George Floyd. We need them to catch fire again, and to move that into political spaces, particularly this coming November election for sure, right? But the capacity for us to do that, in spite of this darkness, is there. I want
right,
us I want us to appreciate that, right? The other thing is that you know, these folks, when this word about this replacement stuff, I mean, you would think that there is so much information out here now that one of the best things for them to do for all of our benefit and survival and well-being is to stop being so bullheaded and come correctly on the question of reparations, so they could come clean with us, clean the image up in the world, and at the
right,
same time, and let all these young voices that are coming forward, who are not just coming forward on the question of race, but coming forward on the question of land and the environment, to
right,
save the damn planet so we can all heal, you know, and
right,
stay alive. You know, the time for that is like way past due, you know.
right,
And so it's, you know, so I want to try and be positive as we can, but, you know, the difficulties amongst us are real. The backwardness amongst us is real, and it's a problem on all sides. And I just hope we realize that those of us who fight and live and try to be a part of the answer to the question, you know, never give up on the strength of our ancestors. Never give up, and continue to stoke those fires, hoping that you know, enough of our young will get it. And I want to believe and think that we will. And I'm doing that, you know, just based on some of the good things we got going on in this town. You know,
right,
um, looking ahead, we're supposed to have a discussion around Newark since 55 years later after the rebellion. This is an intergenerational discussion, but basically with younger people who are involved in this work, or trying to help our community heal, uh, doing community based violence interruption and prevention and reduction, and working on the environment, right?
right,
Some of the elders weren't available where I wanted to truly make it intergenerational, but we got one, you know, back end baby boomer, somebody who's just a little younger than us, who's like a baby during '67, you know, somebody in their 40s or somebody in their 30s for this discussion. And they're all a part of the answer.
right.
And they all have their hands on young people, you know. So, you know, we will, you know, great Herman Ferguson told us many years ago when we started the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, you know, oh, you got 100 people here we talking to, like only 10 of them responded. Organize those 10 people that you got.
Right.
Right.
Organize with the 10 people you
Organize
got.
those 10 that you got, and
Yeah,
then keep working. You know,
yeah,
give it time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, you know,
yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, wasn't it Congressman Powell who said, "Use what's in your hand"?
that's What's in your hand? Yes, one of his
Yeah,
most
what's in your
famous
hand?
sermons. Yes,
Yeah, yeah. Keep the faith, baby.
that's right.
Right.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, and
That's
and
right.
I
You know,
think
you
that
know that's where the man got his video from, right?
no, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that Keep the Faith video that he did with Do It All.
Okay.
A monster
Okay.
video, but that's where it comes from.
But
He was
but
updating
that's
Adam
the
Clayton
thing.
Powell. Yeah, we gotta ask him. You
But
ask him about it when he comes on. I hope he can come on. It's already
yeah,
6:40.
no,
We definitely
I'm not.
miss it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if something came up, in the city that he had
Yeah.
to attend.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
hope it's there. I hope nothing overwhelming. You know, another one of our bad days on the street.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it was a powerful piece. You know, See if I can put
that's a new video that's out now?
That's the most recent of his poetry videos.
Okay.
He did one, What We Want, What We Believe, which is his poetic answer to the 10-point platform of the Black Panther Party. And then came behind that and did Keep the Faith, Baby, right?
Okay.
And I think he did that with Doodle's production team. And
that's
power. That's power. Keep the Faith that's power. Yes, all the way.
Yeah. And we have to remember, I think, those quotes. I don't even think, I don't know if young people, because when you talk about people like Congressman Powell and those cats being those kind of politicians back in the 70s, it's almost as though, people become elected officials and they be afraid to make the kind of moves that need to be made in order to push, black folk forward. I don't, I'm tempted to say push the culture forward, but when you say that, people refer that to hip hop, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
As opposed to black culture,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't really have that kind of power. But as we talk about Amiri, and Powell and them, I got a T-shirt from Mitty yesterday. We were in a meeting, and at the end of the meeting, he gave me this T-shirt, and on the back of it, I don't know if you remember this poem or if you even heard it. Amiri wrote a poem called "Wise Eye."
Oh yeah, that's his reparations poem. It's a monster.
Oh, it's
actually
dope,
an epic
man.
piece. That's just an excerpt from it. I got the shirt.
Okay.
I got it right here.
Yeah.
The Newark Street Academy did it. My little sister
Keisha
had these designed. Yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
Folks can see this.
Oh man, Zaid, why don't you read that poem, man? And then let's because I wanted to do it with the man because what that refers to. That refers to the trouble he was having with that Harriet Tubman Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're trying to remove that statue and think about this poem. What he was saying. Read that poem, Zaid.
Yeah, he had this. It's called Wise, and it's an epic piece. And this is one of the shorter versions of it, right? If you ever find yourself somewhere lost and surrounded by enemies who won't let you speak in your own language, who destroy your statues and instruments, who ban your boom boom, then you are in trouble, deep trouble. They ban your boom boom, you in deep trouble. Probably take you several hundred years to get out, right? Yeah, that's you want some poetry on reparations. You pull that epic wise piece that he developed. The film Wise We Americans. See, that's the film answer to that. The young we have to get her on.
Right.
I went to school with her mother, Ayanna Fowler. Last year they had this little drive-in set up.
Right.
Over by Central Avenue. You remember the drive over Central and Orange Street, right?
Right.
Oh, I got noise in the background. It's Friday night.
Right.
But this young sister and her husband, I forget her husband's name, and I've only met them once.
They had a drive-through, right?
Yeah, the husband designed the whole setup because he's got an engineering background, right? And she brought the films, and one of the films that she did is Wise We Americans, which is a tribute to Amiri, Amina, and Raz, and it gives a lot of spotlight to Amina, and Amina doesn't get the spotlight the way she should have gotten it, right? It's an excellent film, but it's based on this, one of the longer versions of this poem. Amiri did it at the Apollo. Folks want to look for it. Amiri did it at the Apollo for Def Jam some years ago too, and this, like I said, it's one of the poetic drums for the question of reparations. Right.
But Zaid, as I was meditating on this poem, and you think about it, and how it says, just that piece when you said that, if you ever find yourself somewhere lost and surrounded by enemies who won't let you speak in your own language. That's deep, man. That's deep. Because
like America.
Right, because when you think about it, Zaid, black folk, we have a language all of our own, right?
Mhm.
And I'm saying black Americans, which is when you talk, because I heard Farrakhan say this before, brothers and sisters who come from the Caribbean have a language all of their own,
Right.
right? You know, they speak in patois, they speak in,
Mhm.
when they go to Parliament, they speak in a different way. But when
Mhm.
you in the hood with black folk have a
Mhm.
certain rhythm, right?
That's right.
We,
That's
we
right.
have a certain way that we communicate with each other. So when he says that, when he said they won't let you speak in your own language, right? That you think about when because I think about some of the conversations I used to have with brother Mtume, and Mtume had this thing he would always say, you dig, right? Like you had to understand he was speaking from a time period when that was the language, right? That's how they were speaking. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
When you look at um that movie that Denzel Washington was in, where he played the drug kingpin, where they would say, when he would say, "My man," right? Like it spoke to a particular. It was a language. It spoke.
Mhm.
It was the language that they were speaking, and it spoke to a rhythm. It spoke to So when I read this poem, I mean, I'm getting that. And then when he talks about that they destroy your statues, right? So the mayor can't even put up a statue,
Mhm.
right, of Harriet Tubman,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted him to talk about tonight too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. So you can't even do that. So his father's poem, right, is very timely, right? That's why when Minnie gave me the shirt last night, and I came home and I was reading, I said, "Wow!" I said, "We got to
Mhm.
talk to the man about this, because
Mhm.
this is exactly what your dad is saying,
Mhm.
right? They won't
Yeah.
even let you put up the statue, man.
Yeah. It's that they mad about Columbus, who never set foot in the United States. By the way,
Right,
never set foot in the United States. Who initiated a genocide? Right. That's the hero they want to claim. Right. And they're like, well, if you and this ain't even this is no longer a majority white community.
right,
So what is the point of that, right? But Harriet Tubman has been here,
right,
not just in the United States, but she has been on this land that we walk on and live on, right? And has brought people here, and has gotten people free, and that is documentable, right?
right,
And that is real, and no one was harmed
right,
by her legacy.
right,
But we can't have that.
right.
Several hundred
And,
years
and,
later, we can't have that still. Please.
and as Principal Kafele said, they won't even allow us to teach the history of it.
Mm.
Right? They won't even allow us to
We
teach
got
the
to get
kids
him
the
back
truth.
on too. Absolutely. Yes.
Right? So we can't. So when Amiri says that, right, he says they won't allow you to speak in your language, who destroy your statues and instruments, who ban your own boom, boom, boom. Think about that. I mean, this is some dope stuff, man.
Yeah.
And the brother and the ancestor tells us, he said, "You in deep trouble.
That's right. That's
You're in
right.
deep trouble
That's right.
because you can't even speak in that language, which is
That's right.
absolutely incredible."
Hmm.
So I mean, this for me, man, is one hell of a piece, man. I gotta go and look for what he did on up at the Apollo, man, and try and pull that up, you know,
So I'm gonna try and pull it up right now.
because
But yeah,
I'm
he
like,
killed it. Hmm.
you know, because this speaks to all of us, right? Just in terms of where we are, and how, and I think young people need, and I'm glad Keisha put this on the back of the shirt, but I think that young people really need to delve into, what does this really mean,
So,
right?
without
What
further
does it
ado,
really mean?
Yeah. I found it. See if Mike can put this up. It'd be great if we could show this.
Yeah, I'd like, Mike, if you can hear Brother Zaid and see that piece, or maybe you have to tell him what it is so he can go pull it, find it himself. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
How long is the piece?
About 4 minutes.
And he was on stage at the Apollo Theater.
Yeah. Most Def introduced him.
Okay.
They did it. They did that for a few minutes. In the late '90s. I wish they had stayed with that, but that was a spinoff of Def Jam comedy, right? But that was like I said, this the piece that's Sakina, and this I'm talking about Sakina Cotton. Y'all, I hope she's well. I don't know if she pays attention to the show. Uh, is the short version? It's a series of poems called "Why Is We Americans,"
Right.
right? And he did the main piece that he read for the Apollo. And I'm trying to remember which of his books it is. It's in several of his later books. But yeah, it's a powerful piece.
Yeah, I think we got to go back, man, and I think that we've got to revisit these things, man, because I think that that's where the wisdom is, right?
Absolutely.
I think that
Absolutely.
we need to get back to that because I mean I know for me, Zaid, I'm trying to constantly as I think about how if I just think about what Chris just said, if the oldest person he knows is me, like
Right.
wow, how can
Right.
that be,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like how can that be, you know? And I think about the people that I know, and I'm like, wow, So and that's why I wanted to know. And that's and we need to ask young people that, right?
Mhm.
You know, like how old is the oldest person you know? Like, do you have a relationship with any elders?
It's
And what are you learning?
yeah, I'm that's really I'm glad y'all lifted that up in this conversation because it's something really to talk about. It's a touch
Yeah,
point in our community that we need to re-examine and just to because I mean it was our generation that ran toward that damn crack and that's why a whole lot of us ain't here.
yeah, yeah.
It just
But
broke us
that's what
off.
I'm saying. We came through
Yeah,
some tumultuous times when you think about 30 years ago in the 90s, right? Coming through that, what we saw in the 80s, I mean that and we literally saw zombies in the street, right? And Spike captured some of that. He had captured some of that in those movies. Remember that movie New Jack City?
yeah. That wasn't his flick, but yeah, that one and oh god, the one with Samuel Jackson. Uh, he got because he was a crackhead in the
Yeah, yeah,
flick.
yeah, yeah.
Jungle Fever.
I know the movie you're talking about. Yep.
Jungle Fever.
Yeah, Jungle Fever. Yep. He was a crack addict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, that's the movie that discovered Halle Berry,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? Which was absolutely amazing, man.
yeah.
And we survived all of that, which is absolutely incredible. And that's why I think that so I think that some of the conversations, some of the things that are going to happen. And by the way, we're going to announce we do have the new date, new location, and all of that. And so we'll make those announcements.
Good,
But
good.
but some of the things, man, that we're going to have to put forth, right? Um, you know, because the mayor was saying that he wants this. Now that we got all these new things in place, he's like, yo, this has got to be a working convention, right? People got to come to the city of Newark, and we got to do some work, right? We got to do some work in these workshops, man. You know, and it can't be about people coming here thinking that they're gonna party, right? You know,
No, please.
and this ain't the Essence Awards.
All due respect. That's right.
All due respect, but that's not what this is. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And black folk. I mean, I think some people might think we got a lot of time and we living in Pleasantville, but the truth is we aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people, Zaid, in our community that's just not doing well,
Right.
right? They're just not doing well. And those brothers and sisters who are doing well, I think that we've got to find a way to develop that philosophy. If we all are not doing well, then none of us are doing well.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And that's part of having that Black United Front that me and you talk
That's right.
about.
That's
Right.
right. That's right. That's
You know.
that's that village spirit, that village principle. We gotta
Right.
take care of
Right.
everybody. You know, everybody got to be taken care of.
Right. Leave nobody behind, man.
That's right. That's right.
Right. You know, and I think that we've got to develop that philosophy again, and we've got to begin to use those terms of I mean, people under Obama, they coined it as some sort of euphemism, my brother's keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that has to be real talk. Am I my brother? Am I my brother's keeper? Yes.
One of the things that he did, you know, to his credit, is that he actually built out a national structure called My Brother's Keeper. In fact, one of the
Right.
young folks that we have on is a minister in the Newark version of that.
Right.
Yeah, so that's we got to do what we need to do and be who we need to be.
But
We
we've
in
got
a
to
world of
develop
trouble.
that as, but we've got to develop it in such a way where it is real community.
Mhm,
You dig what I'm
mhm,
saying?
mhm. Absolutely,
It's got to
absolutely.
be real community, man. It can't be something on a news soundbite in order to get people to make a donation. You dig what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yes, sir.
It's got to be about saving people's lives. It's got to be
That's right.
about, when you go to harm your brother, you got to say, well, am I my brother's keeper? You
Mhm,
know,
mhm. That's right.
and not harm this brother, not harm this sister,
It's got to
right?
be about changing our condition.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
got to be about right.
and that's how we have to change that whole culture language, right? We have to change that, man,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
begin to have a whole nother conversation. And if we don't do it, Zaid, trust me, man, when is it going to take place? Because the generation is coming behind. They don't, if we listen to Chris, they don't think older brothers and sisters like us give a damn.
That's a tough space to be in.
And we know that's not
Because
true.
if folks feel like that age,
Yeah,
that means they ain't listening to nobody.
no,
See?
they're not. Zaid, I shouldn't say they're not listening to nobody. They are listening to somebody, but some of the stuff they're listening to is taking
It's
them in the wrong
destructive.
direction.
Right on. That's
Right,
right. It's destructive as
right.
hell. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about a conversation I had with Bob Law. Remember, Bob was talking about the music, and he talked about the music that we were coming through with, right, during that whole '70s era, right, that kept a revolution going, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you were able to get, the Black Power movement. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
were able to keep, a 1972 convention happening. Remember, the music was just as much a part of
Yeah.
the
Yep.
convention as what was going on. I mean, think
Sure.
about all of the artists. Think about all of the songs.
Yeah.
Think
A lot
about
of them were
Marvin
there.
Gaye's song.
Yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. You think about what's going on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
you think about when in the '90s when Chuck and them was coming through, they was trying to make message music. Fight the power. They were trying to make the music that spoke to the culture. That's why people were walking around with red, black, and green on, or
Right.
medallions and not jewelry, because they
Right.
because they were trying to make it about the culture. They were trying to
That's
make it
right.
about the people. And we've got to find a way to dial some of this back, man,
And
and be able to move people forward, man.
especially with every space that we control, we have to use it for our liberation.
Yeah.
Every
So
even if it ain't many spaces, whatever the space is, your line got to be how we gonna use this to help liberate our people. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it ain't just about making money or being safe. How we gonna do that,
yeah.
right? Yeah, and then the great Gaddy has just joined us,
Yep.
right?
So let's just wrap
Kim, I
this
don't know
up
if
in
you've
a
heard
little
the
bit right
last
here.
few minutes of what we've been saying. Right.
Yes, I have. Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good
Great
evening.
conversation.
And then, the rest of the guests for the segment should be popping in any second, right? The great Donna K. Williams says, "When Madam Donna has come." This is Mark Comesañas. Mark, I was just talking you up, Mark, for My Brother's Keepers, right? And my beloved child Keisha Eure should be on in a minute as well. In this segment, and let me introduce it. Donna, first, let me just say welcome back. We know you've had your hands full with work. Good to have you back. We miss your presence always. And it was good to see you and good to have you back in the space. July 12th was the back in 1967. I think that's I ain't gonna say whose birthday year that was, but you know who I'm talking about, right? But that's part of the point that we're trying to make. Was the beginning of the epic Newark Uprising, the Newark Rebellion, and of course, Newark has been measured and put in a locked space for decades as a consequence of how folks see, value, or devalue that uprising, right? So we thought some 55 years later, and at a space where our country is in the political crossroads in a very real way, that was important to have a intergenerational reflection on where the city is and how far the city has come since that epic, challenging moment, right? And we, and Kim, we didn't mean for you to be the elder in this paradigm, right? The elders that we wanted are considerably older than you are, but we staggered it. We staggered it so the folks in their 50s, their 40s, their 30s, can share their impressions on how we need to be looking at and trying to rebuild this community that we've been living in for years and love, in spite of how other folks may see it. Right. So I want to welcome Kim Gaddy, environmental pioneer on the question of environmental justice. Are you still in Cali? Are you still in Cali with your convention, with your conference?
Yes, I am. I'm still in California.
Oh, beautiful. What part of Cali are you in, Kim?
Long Beach.
Long Beach, beautiful. And
Yes,
perfect
yes.
weather out there. Okay.
Yeah, it's really nice. I brought my staff from the Southward Environmental Alliance out here so they could see the largest port in the nation, which is the Port of LA.
Okay.
The second largest port is our Newark port, and then the third is Long Beach. So they can see the difference in the work that we're doing to change our situation. And
So
I
you
just
said
didn't want to
Newark.
pass up.
You said Newark is the second largest?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And
Okay.
Long Beach is the third. Some people
Mhm.
always say the top two is California, but over the years we have actually passed Long Beach and we're number two. So, it was important to bring my staff out here to see this. But this conversation is also important too, because when you think about the legacy of our city and the environmental racism that existed back then. I was born in 1964, so I was 3. I was actually living on Chadwick Avenue, and my brother actually saved the owner of the Army and Navy store. I mean, some of you from the South Ward, there was Army and Navy store right there on Clinton Avenue in Chadwick. And our house was the first house on Chadwick. It is torn down now. But I just remember, even at 3, what was happening in the conversations, what the newspaper looked like. And then I remember what Dr. King was saying and talking about powder kegs. And when you look at our city right now, it's in that state somewhat still, all these years later, that any given moment, there can be a reaction where individuals feel they have to be explosive, right? And just do something because of the anger and the frustration. And part of our work, even in the environmental field, is we're sick and tired of corporations coming into our city and dictating what they want to build here and
That's
how it's
right.
polluting us, right? It's endangering our health. We don't want that. You can't control our narrative. You
Right.
have to come into our community and be a good neighbor, right?
Right.
And understand the importance of environmental justice, social justice, economic justice. Yes, we want our communities to thrive from what happened 55 years ago, but we want them to thrive in a way that is not doing more harm to us as residents. And we don't want our culture and our history to be lost when someone else come in and change what Newark looks like. We want to know that people was here before and they stood for something. And so that's what I think about when folks talk about the rebellion and what happened, and they want to always talk about how we destroyed our neighborhood. People was fired up and upset. So they didn't know how to control their anger. And it's almost what some of
But
our
but
youth
Kim,
are
but
doing.
Kim, but hold that thought. And even when these uprisings that happen down in Baltimore with young brother getting killed, and they're saying you're destroying your neighborhood. But if these corporations are coming into our community and not engaging in us, not engaging with us about what they're bringing to our community, is it really our community? We don't feel that connection. And then and I completely understand it. I think one of the things in Baltimore was it was the CVS or the Walmart or something, TJ Maxx or something was getting burnt up, and everybody kept saying, why would they do that? But where was the connection? Did TJ Maxx or whoever the developers at that time really come back and come to the community and say, hey, we're getting ready to develop in this community. These are the ideas we have. What do you think? And do you have any input? Do they ever do that? I mean, have they learned that the way they do business is not a good way of doing business? Stop dictating to us, as you said.
Exactly. And I mean, and that's why our victory just last week was so important. Amazon is the largest employer in the state of New Jersey.
Stop.
And our South,
I want
and
you to
our
lift that up.
Southward,
I want you to
and
lift
our
that. A lot of
Southward
people, that story
community.
went over a lot of people's heads. What happened with
Yes.
Amazon? What were they trying to do? And how did the people beat them back?
Yes, I mean, they wanted to build a 250,000 square foot air hub right at our airport in the South Ward. And we was able to, and I must acknowledge, the mayor came and he supported us, and Congressman Donald Payne, and he felt conflicted because yes, we know that they always want to dangle jobs.
Jobs. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
say, oh, we're going to bring you 1,000 jobs. Well, first of all, anytime you come into our neighborhood, we know we're going to get jobs, but every job is not a good job, right? And then if you want to tear down our community, so Amazon wanted to build this facility, and we already have 25 to 30,000 trucks coming in and out of our port every day. Now you're going to build the Amazon hub, an air hub. You know, thousands more trucks was going to come in and out. And we said, hey, we want a community benefits agreement if you're going to come. We want to make sure that you are not going to continue to pollute and harm us in our community. We want to make sure you're not going to add to the flooding that happens on Freeland Heights and Avenue, right? We want to make sure that it's really a good job. And you're not just going to hire 1,000 Newark residents today and fire them in 30 days. We
That's
want to
right.
make sure that they were
Good
able
job.
to,
Union job.
be able to
Benefits.
have management,
With
right?
living wages.
Management level.
Yes.
And so they could
So what
not
did they say? I mean,
agree.
they were down at Big
And,
Bad Wealthy. Amazon wasn't down with that.
and how
It
about a
wasn't
job
that.
that will pay a salary so that they can live in the neighborhood? How about
Exactly.
that?
And the reality is Amazon, one of the good things that happened previously is SEIU was able to get $15 minimums a couple years ago at the airport, which meant that the rate was going to increase. So by 2023, I think it was going to be $20 an hour if you work at the airport. So now if Amazon is coming in here, every employee who started there would have to start at what? $20 an hour. So
That's
of
right.
course they didn't want to start at the higher rate. They didn't want to agree with the environmental conditions. It's like we want electric trucks. We want zero emissions. We want to make sure you're not tearing up our roads. We want you to establish a community benefits agreement with the Southward Environmental Alliance in the South Ward, these environmental groups, and I want to call out some of our coalition members, Clean Water Action,
Right on.
Ironbound Community Corp.
Right on.
We had Make the Road New Jersey,
Right on.
Teamsters,
Right on.
SEIU,
Right on.
Weequahic Park Association,
Right on.
just to name a few. And
Right on.
our
United Front.
reality is that,
United Front. Come on. Come on.
yes, and it means that unions and environmentalists came together in solidarity. We're not always against one another. And so they couldn't handle that we was protecting our health, they were protecting the workers, and Amazon, I'm telling you, they started in August of 2021, and they wanted to have this deal done in 1 month. We fought from August until 2 weeks ago, and we shut them down.
Shut them
And
down.
that's the power of
For the
people
people. That's right.
standing up and saying, no, you're not going to get away with this. Our life is valuable. We have a right to breathe clean air, right? We have a right to have good jobs. And so it was because of the solidarity and the people power coming together, similar to what was happening through the riots. In our neighborhoods, just think about what it was like when all the rebellion, like everything started. People then came together to rebuild, to heal, right? And so we want to let people know we can't have anybody ever coming into our community and dictating of what should be to the benefit of us. No, we know what's best for us. And so when you think about this multi-billion-dollar corporation, power to the people will always win.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We're talking about community self-determination. That's right. That's right. Mr. Comesañas.
Yes, good
And
evening.
you're the youngest one in this discussion, right? And you're an educator. You have your hands on young folks. Your young folks just did an important study where they look backward. They did a Sankofa thing. They look backward in order to find themselves to go forward. What did what say you about Newark some 55 years later? What's your view on what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, so first, thank you for having me, Baba Zaid, and just being able to be on this panel and represent, I guess, the voice of relative youth. Let me say that. There's a lot of thoughts going through my mind just as I heard the discussion right now. I thought about the bait and switch of offering jobs in our communities. It made me think of, if I could go even further back than 55 years, to recent celebration around Juneteenth. I was thinking and reading once again the proclamation that was made in Texas when African slaves and Black people were finding out that they were not slaves any longer. The proclamation recommended that although you are free, that you remain in the positions you are in an employer-employee relationship. And it just, as I hear the bait and switch that happens even now, 2022, and this idea of we're going to do this in your community and give you jobs, I can't help but think of that proclamation all those hundreds of years ago. And I think the point that was made around, do we really own these communities when we say they're our communities? I mean, if you go back 55 years, we did not own the communities. We lived in those communities, but we did not own them. I mean, if you think about what was happening in the 60s in Newark, you had thousands and thousands of people, mostly people of color, being displaced for things like a hospital, things like a Route 280, right? You had a corrupt mayor who was displacing people of color so that some of his cronies can put parking lots in places where people used to live. They were only able to do those things because we did not own the land and the property. And I think now, right, 55 years later, Rutgers recently did a study asking the question, who owns Newark? And the answer is almost the same. It's not us, right? We don't own the property, the land in our own communities to the extent that other people are able to come in and almost do at their will, unless people like Ms. Gaddy and other organizations stand up, much like organizations did 55 years ago. And so I think it's important when we tell the story of the rebellion, of the uprising, that we talk about people like Bob Curvin and Amiri Baraka and others who, Junius Williams, right? We talk about SDS coming to the city. We talk about what that did in the way of responses to what was happening in our community. Because I think there's lessons to be learned. I think there's things to celebrate. And there are other things that we need to remain hungry for more on. And so, you know, when I think about 55 years later, where we are, considering that, you know, now the son of Amiri Baraka is leading our city, that we have, you know, it's interesting. After the uprising, that's 1967, 68, the governor releases a commission or a report rather on civil disorders. In 68, the recommendation all those years ago was for the state to take over the school system. It was in a state of chaos. They were making that recommendation as far back as 68. It obviously did not happen until 95. But now we have our own school board back. You know, we have a Newark native, a son of one of our most prominent activists, not just in the city and the state, but in this country as the mayor. And so I think there's a lot to celebrate, but I also think we need to make sure we stay hungry.
Yeah, well, quite frankly, the conditions that we face is going to keep us hungry. Right? I was on the phone with a sister who runs, a very dear friend of mine, a comrade, who runs Newark emergency food services. And she was like, you know, we've got to, you know, we do have even though, you know, COVID is not what it was 2 years ago, we have a food access crisis that needs a whole lot more attention than we're giving it to. And we're going to look forward to trying to getting her on to talk about that too, our conditions of making us hungry. And to Donna's point a little while ago, great Kwame Ture used to say, you know, when that whole question is being, well, why are you destroying your own community? Well, what is our community? You know, what do we own? And then if you take apart, and Mark, I appreciate the detail that you went into in your overview. You pick apart how things went down, you know, the businesses that existed in our community that we had, right? Our community identified those businesses, right? Soul Brother, right? So folks would know not to harm our own spaces. But what happened when we did that, being deliberate and being conscious, right? The police attacked those businesses. See, the occupiers attacked those businesses, right? Because they couldn't fathom that we would dare be so deliberate in the character of this uprising that was making them do all this work that they didn't want to do. You know, so yeah, good stuff. Donna, Ed, jump on in here. Share some of your wisdom with these incredible folks that we got. And Keisha should be jumping in a minute, because I want to also lift violence reduction work that's important to this equation too.
Well, I'm a child of 67. You know, I'll be turning 55
it was you.
in October.
I didn't say.
Yeah, yeah. I will be turning 55 on October 5th. And to think that that I was in my mother's womb while so much was going on in our community. I often question my older brother Keith, like, what do you remember? And one of the things, that amazes me, he remembers looking out the window, and because we had armories in our town. Orange had an armory. I believe East Orange had an armory. And if you lived in certain areas of the town, you could see the tanks coming up and down Central Avenue.
Well, South Clinton Central. I saw them tanks.
Right. And, to hear, like, could you imagine, a little boy looking out his window and seeing that, come in through his neighborhood, tanks, and, I'm over, in Jersey City, and there's an armory over there, and talking to the elders over there, they talk about the same thing. So through our different towns, we were occupied, communities, and that, was very interesting, just to think that, that here we are now, and what could seem so far could be so close in terms of, history repeating itself. I think about yesterday, Joe Madison, on his closing statement, he made a plea to the younger generation: stop buying into my vote does not count. Please. He said, because it does make a difference. And if it didn't make a difference, why would they be going through all of these changes to
Block
make
us.
sure that you could? But that his closing statement was very, very passionate yesterday and speaking to the younger generation. We need you. Don't buy into midterms, the Democrats always lose this. No, it doesn't always have to be as it was. We can make some changes if we just get up and make the changes, and be a part of know our history so that we don't repeat it. And oftentimes history repeats itself because we don't know it, and we don't know how we got to the
Ed, I know
situations that
you want to
we
jump in. Ed, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ed, why don't you remind folks of what was so important about the Gary Convention in '72 that speaks squarely to the point that she just made?
Yeah, two things, as we talk about that when she was talking about, I lived, as a matter of fact, Zaid, I don't know if you noticed, but I lived right across the street from Amiri Baraka, right? In
Mhm.
'67, right? He had the Spirit House. It was on Sterling Street. And so I lived right across the
Right.
street, right? And it was, we lived at 40 Sterling Street. And when you talk, and I was born in 1961, so I was a child when all this was happening. They were actually coming up Sterling Street with tanks. There were soldiers actually outside, and for me, it was like a cartoon, right? Because I was playing with little toy soldiers at that time.
Right.
And so, I mean, I was looking at these white guys coming up the street, and we used to play army men and all of that when we were kids. So when I saw all of that, and then of course I saw, what was happening because of course we lived on Sterling Street, so you had all, Essex County College was being built at the time, and all of that stuff was in walking distance, and so you could walk downtown, and you saw sort of the violence where you saw the vandalism, and you saw all of that, but what you did see was that what people were calling violence, what we saw was black people fighting back, right? We saw black people standing up. That's what we saw. And remember, Dr. King once said that, what is one way for black people to be heard, right? Violence is one way for it to happen. I mean, if we're constantly talking to you and you're not listening, what is the other way for you to hear us, right? And so, you gotta understand that at that particular time, the level of political consciousness in our community was not that high, and so we were able to come out of that, and that and be able to move in that direction to get a Ken Gibson, you know. But I want to go back to something that Mark was talking about when he talked about community. This whole idea of community. You know, I mean, is there? I mean, we use the term, right? And Mark, before you came on, one of the things I was talking about, everybody used that colloquialism, my brother's keeper, right? And that it's become, this sort of catchphrase to raise money on and get donations and build organizations. But is that really an ideal that is in the spirit of the people, right? Because if that was in the mind and in the heart of the people, we wouldn't see the level of violence that we see that is perpetrated against us to us, right? Because another brother would say, I'm my brother's keeper. I'm not going to hurt that brother, but why? Because I'm my brother's keeper. And so I was talking to Zaid, before you came on. We were saying, well, how do we move to making that ideal real, right? How do you move to making that real? And I think that part of it is that we've sort of lost our way because we were talking about, you know, what we've seen in our generation, what I've seen in my lifetime. I'm actually seeing 40-year-old grandfathers, right? What do a 40-year-old grandfather really know trying to raise a grandchild. Somebody saying granddad, you 40 years old. What do you really know? When I was coming through, grandfathers were in their 60s, and in fact, in their late 60s. Grandmothers was in their 70s. Now we got all of these young people who are grandparents. And then when you think about, what we came through, and you think about, in our lifetime coming through a crack era, right? Coming through all of that, and the level of damage that was done to families, and you think about the level of incarceration, you think about all those things that were done, and now you look at what's going on, and you ask, that article you referred to, who owns Newark, right? When you think about all of those things, you got to understand a lot of the stuff that was done to us, Mark, it was really done to us by design. And so when you talk about somebody like a Mayor Baraka, you know, and I don't know if you remember this, Donna, but when the mayor first got elected, I asked him then, 8 years ago, I mean, I know black folk are putting a lot of pressure on you, you know, and because of who you are, because of your level of consciousness. And even now, when we look at that, and you talk about, what Sister Gaddy said, how she stood up with him, and this environmental justice. You think about all the fronts that somebody that with that level of consciousness has to have, and then you look at where we are in this, trying to recall the '67 uprising. I'm saying, Zaid, hell, there needs to be another uprising.
Yeah,
Wow.
Shot likes to say it's time for love uprising.
Yeah.
I
Wow. I
agree.
just wanted to. Oh,
No,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Mark.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I also wanted to just say a couple of things too, because Kervin was my father's first cousin. Amir Baraka was my college professor at Rutgers. So it's really a small world too, right? When you think about it. But it is so. I mean, just hearing the last statement that we almost need another riot. That's what we've been seeing with all these killings of individuals from police brutality and the racist policies. When you think about, as Mark stated, look at 78 coming through our communities, tearing up our homes, displacing people, right? So that you could make quick access from individuals to come into Newark and get out. It wasn't for us.
That's
And
right.
then we're still fighting all these years later, what you want to expand highways that come through North Orange and East Orange, our EJ communities, to pollute and kill us, but allow people quick access out of here. We have to change this situation and stop looking at things from this transactional kind of confrontation and actions and activity to transformational change. If we can't get Newark to become something as transformational, when you understand that the racist policies in our zoning, the racist policies, that how we allow developers to come in here, the racist policies in some of our policing, if we can honestly say, let's have a serious talk, reassess, and change, we're never going to receive that transformational change that we need, where Black and brown people can say, now we have liberation. We want to be liberated.
That's right.
We want to stop waking up angry each and every day because I can't provide for my family. My children have asthma because we live in communities that you allow the most polluting facilities to be sited next door to us. We are allowing our children to not be educated properly because we got lead in the drinking water. We are allowing individuals to not give us the kind of jobs because of the color of our skin.
Mhm.
We can't exist like this. And until we honestly begin to say our environment is at the root of everything, at the root, and really begin to peel back the layers and say, we're going to start from a healthy community. Because mental health, all of those issues are connected to our youth walking through communities and see vacant lots, dilapidated buildings,
Mhm.
but we want them to look at Newark as a future place for them to live and stay and thrive. When all they see is broken glass, when all they see is torn down buildings. We can't begin to change their mindset when we allow them to come into schools that don't receive them as the most intelligent king and queens that they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this conversation has to happen all the time,
Mm-hmm.
not just today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was, I remember African Echoes, right? Back in the day, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
LaFrancis Rogers Rose, my mentor, and so many people that would come, Dr. Jeffries, and
Mm-hmm.
like everybody would come to Newark and have conversations with us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that for my children who are 22 and 18. And my son would have been 33. I lost my son last year. So at the end of the day, if we're not going to be able to create those circles, we can't teach our children what has happened in the past. They only know what's happening now, right? And so that's a whole nother consciousness that we have to begin to bring back. And until we do those kind of things, we're going to continue to have change that's transactional and not transformational.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mark, you get ready to jump in, and I think you definitely have some healthy remarks to add to what you said by virtue of what you have done and what you're doing with young folks in town. Uh, Add to and respond to Ms. Gaddy's remarks.
Yeah, I think Ms. Gaddy's spot on with the idea of returning to the level of consciousness that I think some of our young people may have lost, and it's not necessarily their fault that they've lost it. I know the hour before we jumped on, you were talking about Amiri Baraka's Wise, and there's the portion of the poem, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, where it talks about that they won't let you speak your own language, right? And then it talks later about who try to ban your boom bap. I know I'm not saying it exactly right, so forgive me, but I was thinking about that section of the poem, and it did two things for me. It reminded me of going back 1898, the United States occupies Puerto Rico. And when they come into Puerto Rico, amongst the many things that they did, one of the things they did was ban the speaking of Spanish.
Spanish, that's right.
They understood how important it was to be able to colonize a people by taking their language away. The Puerto Rican people began to, react and respond and rebel to hold on to the Spanish. But here's the irony of the entire thing. Spanish is not the native language of the Puerto Rican people. Spanish was just the language of the previous colonizer.
That's right.
And so when you think about the piece of Amiri Baraka's poem where it talks about banning the boom bap, part of the consciousness is knowing the difference between what is our boom bap and what is something that was imposed on us. And I think that has gotten convoluted in the idea of what it means to be Black, what it means to be brown, what it means to be a man in our community. I have two sons. I've had to have this conversation with my 18-year-old. I've had it with my 14-year-old. And we're having it with the young people that we work with who are part of our Youth Policy Advisory Board. We have a group of young people who we are getting ready now so that they can actually teach a class themselves to future educators at Rutgers. And so we're talking about changing the power paradigm. But in those conversations, what I find myself and the team oftentimes doing is trying to separate for our young people, particularly our young men, what it means to be young, to be Black, to be brown, to be from Newark, because I think we've internalized the colonizer's language of what that means, and trying to get them to understand that they are actually assets in solving our community challenges rather than them being the actual challenge or problem we're trying to solve is a huge mindset shift. The number of young people who introduce me to their 8-month-old or 1-year-old, and I'm like, oh, how is she? How he's doing? It's like, oh, he's bad as hell. Ain't no such thing as a bad as hell 1-year-old. It's just you are putting the wrong boom bap on that 1 and 2-year-old. But it is, quite frankly, a rhythm that has been put on them when they were young. And I don't know when that happened. It probably happened as a result of many things, including crack, including the music, a bunch of things. But I'm not necessarily sure, it was one thing, but I do know that it is one of the things that we need to talk about, how we start to reverse and delineate for our young people. So as Kim Gaddy said, they are more conscious of actually who they are, right? And they have that knowledge of self.
Yes.
And also, Mark, 0 to 3 years old, our young people are like sponges, so they're absorbing everything around them. So what they are, they're internalizing, and then they're probably responding. They're communicating as to what they're learning, and it's amazing to watch our babies and how intelligent they are. And and now, because they're this computer age, they have much more information than we had. So it's like, wow, the things that you see our babies doing now, whether it's reciting songs or it's just amazing right now. So we have to be able to I guess the question is, how do we take that energy and capitalize on it, if you will? I know Montclair State, they used to have like Essex County, all the colleges have like the kiddie colleges, and they offer Saturday programs where you bring the young people in, and you kind of hone in on those things, because you have prodigies, or it's just that 0 to 3 age marker is a very dynamic age, and if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss a lot. So
one of the things that the mayor is trying to do is make Newark a trauma-informed city. And then one of the things about trauma, the younger someone faces it, the more enduring the impact of that trauma can be. So that whole thing about really trying to bring peace to our streets is important. I wanted to lift up, and I want Mark to come back on this also, the Newark Street Academy, one of the restorative justice spaces that the mayor created that goes after youth 16 to 24 who are not in school, that equips them with the means to take that GED and to do that with some history, right? This is a part of their gear, the T-shirt that I was sharing. This is a part of their gear, right? And they have a lot of their gear has that kind of quality, and their classes aren't just how to do the math problem on the test and how to finish the sentence and answer the question on the test. They're given some of the history that they didn't get when they were trying to figure out how to stay in school or not stay in school when they were in trouble. Mark, I wanted you to actually tell folks about what My Brother's Keepers does. A lot of folks don't know that, just what that is, right? And it's not just a saying. There is a space that is all over the country. What does My Brother's Keepers does, and how is that, and how is that a part of the answer to the question?
Sure. So My Brother's Keeper obviously was launched by then President Obama. It was in response to the killing of Trayvon Martin, and a desire and a challenge, quite frankly, to cities across the country to think about specifically the boys and young men of color that are in our cities. Cities took on that challenge. Mayor Baraka took on that challenge in 2016. And initially, when MBK launched, at least in Newark, it was very heavy on direct service kind of mentoring of young men. It was intended to figure out how do we better convene and collaborate with organizations that are doing mentoring of young men in the city. Now, fast forward several years, you have over 200 MBK communities across the country. Those MBK communities come together in sometimes in regions, sometimes across the nation to just, do as a think tank and to collaborate, to learn from each other. MBKs may look different in cities depending on really what the need is. And so over the last several years, MBK sat under the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. It eventually transitioned as an initiative to the Newark Opportunity Youth Network. And it is specifically focused on policy and advocacy. And it's about how do we advocate with, not for, but with boys and young men of color for policies that impact them, their families, and ultimately our communities. The Newark Opportunity Youth Network works with young people 16 to 24. It's the similar demographic to that of the Newark Street Academy. Young people who have not had success in traditional schooling, have at some point disconnected from school and work, but are looking to come back for knowledge of self, even though that may not be exactly how they articulate it at the moment. They're looking for the ability to transcend circumstance for themselves, their families, and our communities. And so they're able to be educated academically, workforce development, training. They're able to start being assets in the community rather than takers in the community. And we are always working to figure out how do we get at NBK seats at the table for young people. I think about, for example, the North Public Safety Collaborative, who has a lot of data on crime in the city. It was just 4 or 5 months ago where we were able to sit with them and say, has this data ever been presented to young people? And they said, no, we've actually always presented to adults. And so we were able to have them come to Lee Charter School, sit with Opportunity Youth, and present to them crime data that, if we're being honest, some of the young people who were sitting in that group knew they were making up some of that data, to be honest. And they were telling on themselves, actually, in some of those sessions. But they were able to actually now contribute in a way that we're as assets rather than the problem. You know, Baba Zaid was there, I guess it was Wednesday, where we had a similar experience. North Public Safety Collaborative sharing data, and the hub had
that's right.
10 young people at the Brick City Peace Collective.
Right.
Young people who also make up the numbers in some of this data, who were looking at this data and being able to wrap their minds around why is crime going up in certain neighborhoods, down in others, and more importantly, and you know, Zaid, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt to me like those young people felt a responsibility now for that data, because they had been given access to it. They were able to orient themselves around what that data meant and how it represented their actual everyday daily lives. So that's some of the work that we're doing at NBK. And again, really trying to get particularly our boys and young men of color to be assets in solving our community challenges.
And that's an eye towards the transformative justice that Kim was talking about. Now she's not here, so I want to lift up a piece of the conversation that this is naturally kind of moving towards, and that's Keisha Eure. Keisha Eure is the now the director of the newly found Office of Violence Prevention. Now, traditionally, we have a rally and march from we now call the Rebellion Monument on Springfield Avenue to the first precinct, where everything jumped off back in '67. This year, we were received by the Office of Violence Prevention, by the Newark Street Academy, by the Brick City Peace Collective, in a welcoming spirit, because the first precinct is no longer what it was. It has been turned into a space of education and healing and transformation, and is going to include, on top of that, become a community museum within the next year or two. So that's you know, with some of those spaces that we can control, we can certainly transform those spaces institutionally from being oppressive to being uplifting, right? So it was the first time that they did something like that, and the elders, you know, who were in the march and who were, you know, telling their stories from '67 and whatnot, and who are really by virtue of where they're at at this stage of their lives, more removed from the young people and the challenges that young people are facing in our town, right? And all of its dimensions and all of its complexity and all of its violent challenges, you know, they were like, wow, really, you know, and you know, and have to figure out what to do that. So I wanted to lift that up to say that, you know, everybody here in this conversation, I would dare say, is a part of Newark's future, Newark's healthy future. It's a part of Newark's now, Newark's healthy now, and part of the profusion of organizing for power, right? That came out of '67, right? Just 2 weeks after the rebellion, right on Broad Street, right over by the Y. We had a national Black Power conference that was convened by Amiri with the bandages still on his head from when he got, the police cracked his skull just weeks earlier, right? And out of that came this infusion of this new expression of embracing this thing that we just got access to, called the vote, called the ballot, right? And the time had come to really mobilize on how to really transform those spaces where we are the majority, right? To reflect our identity and reflect our capacity to be owners of of the spaces that we control. And that manifested in this high point with Gary in 72. Right.
And Zay, if you could put a footnote right there. And Kim, I don't know if you know, in that space, they were talking about knocking that building down that came out of there that they promised that was going to be a part as long when they built the NJ Pack up, that building would stay there, and that because it was a part of the history of the uprising. And now there are discussions, well, this building is kind of sort of in the way. So I know conversations are still going on, and we need to make sure the full community knows that these conversations are going on, and make sure that no decisions are made without the community being fully aware of what the final decision is going to be in terms of that building.
And what's happening in that space? They're teaching art, culture, performance. That's what's going on in that space. And then here's the big art center saying it's in the way.
Yeah.
That needs to be answered with some community stuff, like what Kim was just talking about when they shut it down over Amazon coming in without proper permission and agenda.
Yeah, and just likewise too, because I know, some folks is like, yay, NJ Pack is partnering with Lionsgate, and we're going to bring this big studio on Freeland Heights Avenue where the old Seth Boyden housing unit used to be. And some of us as environmentalists is like, hold up, wait a minute, because when you tore down these houses, we're supposed to rebuild, more affordable housing. And so for the Newark Housing Authority to also come in and under the disguise of arts and culture, we want to bring, this studio. The studio might be great, but you still have to go through the same process. You have to let these community members who have lived in public housing and have suffered for years, some individuals who want to come back, like you're just having a conversation without them. And a couple of weeks ago, we finally had a conversation. But NJ Pack was there, the Newark Housing Authority, represent Councilman Pat Council are newly elected for the South Ward, and so they agreed to have further conversations. But it's always an afterthought. Right. And so one of the things too that speaks around environmental justice, it is a part of our civil rights. It is a civil rights whole process. We had the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That was a fight for justice. And if we can't have a say in what our communities look like, what the cultural institutions that have been in our communities for years, how they can remain and stay, again, we're not really having the right conversation with apples and apples, orange and oranges. We're like confusing it. And so then people get so upset and they don't want to be a part because they say, oh, they're going to do whatever they want to do. But as you mentioned, we have a right for self-determination. We have a right, as environmental justice activists, we say, we have to have a seat at the table and meaningful participation in this discussion of our community, because it's our community. And so I just think that even with everything that we talked about, and I already wrote some notes for my youth coordinator to reach out to Mark, to reach out with the street team, because we are preparing the next generation of environmental justice activists. And the same table that Mark sit at with our Brothers Keeper, the same tables that so many other folks sit at. If you're not talking about the environment and connecting those dots, then we're going to then lose a whole other generation of individuals who will allow toxics and poisons to create communities where now 1 out of 4 children in Newark have asthma. More people die of asthma and heart attacks than homicides. But every time somebody gets killed in the city of Newark, it's all over.
Right.
But when I lose our young babies to asthmatic attack or our elders, nobody want to have a conversation. And so we have to stop treating the different pieces of our civil rights in separate silos. Our health is our wealth. Economic, racial, environmental, justice has to work together. And so I just think that this is the time, and I'm so glad, and I know I got to run to feed my staff, but this is the
And Kim,
time.
just before you leave, I want to. It's been very dry. We have had rain, but it hasn't been an abundance of rain. And there's a lot of building going on in Newark. I have driven down streets on a hot 90-degree day and seeing them doing construction on these like 1 to 3 family, and there is no water being sprayed. Now, as a council person, I know that that's something you shut that down, because that's a main cause of asthma. That dust is just flying in that community. That people need to be on those sites, but something that simple is overlooked because it's such a small project. So we have to pay attention, because they're hoping that we are letting these little things just keep going by. Little things become big things, like our babies
Exactly.
developing asthma and things like that.
And
Exactly. And I just want to say, my brother, thank you for allowing me to be here, because I this is what I live for. But at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful, because anytime we can share information and then create the right kind of relationships to continue these conversations, that is a piece of that transformational change. Because typically in the different circles of and my brother's keeper or the North Street team, they're not talking about our environment. And if you're not talking about that, then how can you make sure our children can learn if the number one reason of school absenteeism is asthma? If I can't go to work because I got to stay home to take care of my asthmatic child, and I'm a mother who has 3 asthmatic children, just because I chose to live in the Newark zip code. I could have moved anywhere, but I chose to stay there, fourth generation Norker, right? And so we also have to begin to really look at those health injustices, because they are connected to our mental health. They are connected to health. There's many studies where you go into more green and serene communities, crime is reduced, because literally people in North are hot, right? Because of heat island effect. They are hot and they get fired up. But if they have more green, more peaceful kind of communities and places to just calm down so they won't be so upset, that also adjusts their attitude. And so we really have to think about that. But there's many studies on that. But people don't want to have those honest conversations. We can't be a concrete jungle and expect real change from our children. They have to be able to understand trees do grow in our communities, and they are good for us. And so, I kind of, I'm sorry that I'm going to have to leave, because as some of you know, I am in California, and
yeah,
my my staff.
before you leave, Donnie, you got to ask Mark and Kim the question, and we have to stop letting our communities be, as the film says, sacrifice zones, right? And let NJ Pack know that we shut NJ Pack down in the early days of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. We was interrupting some of every goddamn body. They ain't off limits, right?
Well,
So
Kim
go
and
ahead,
Mark,
Donnie, ask your question, and then
yeah, as you doing the work that you're doing, just let us know what hip. This is a political hip hop show. What hip hop individual or group are you listening to motivate you to get you through these different projects that you're working on these days? And we're gonna start with Kim and then Mark.
Lately I've been kind of going back to Lauryn Hill and some of those tracks.
Mhm.
Because it just, I don't know, I think it was a couple weeks ago, she kind of hooked back up with Wycliffe. I forgot one of those award show. And I just kind of been going back like, this is Jersey. This is like her songs is just, they're speaking to me at this moment. And so I gotta go with Lauryn Hill and Fugees and Wyclef.
Okay. Okay. Well, go feed that team and thank you. We look forward to hearing from you soon. And Mark,
Thank
who are
you.
you listening to?
So I'm blessed to have this is the second time I'm actually on the show. So the first time I was really heavy on my Tribe Called Quest. But my answer is gonna be a little bit different, and it's gonna actually maybe be it's gonna be hip hop adjacent. I have been re-listening to Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life just over and over and over again. I'm driving my wife crazy because I'm playing it all the time. And then I'm in the office. I got it blazing on the speaker. It's just that entire album is just speaking to my soul right now. And so right now it is on heavy rotation.
Okay. Well,
It's
thank
hard,
you.
it's hard to believe that. It's hard to
And,
believe that album's almost 50 years old.
Nah,
yeah. And it's interesting. Stevie Wonder in the last couple of shows have been coming up quite frequently. But Mark, tell us a little bit about that artwork behind your head. It's just I just keep looking at it.
So it actually was a gift from my staff. I was the principal at Lee Charter School, and the 2020 was my last year there. And the staff gifted me that image. They said that they thought it captured me. So I'm not sure what it means, but it's Albert Einstein dribbling, doing a crossover with a basketball. And so it was a gift. I loved it. I hung it in my home office, and
Okay.
that's where it sits. So yeah.
Okay, that's what it sounds like. Albert playing ball. Okay, that's deep. Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So I really appreciated it from the staff. It was a hard year, that 2020 year, because of the pandemic. We got through it together. They were gracious enough to gift it to me. So it hangs here in my home office.
Beautiful, beautiful. Albert
Well, thank
Einstein,
you.
quiet as kept, was a hell of an anti-war progressive too. A lot of people don't know that about him.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Now we've got a guest that is actually getting ready to premiere a musical hip hop show right here in Newark at the Mulberry Commons starting next Friday, right? So we ain't got to ask you the hip hop question now. We just need to hear you tell a story about what you're getting ready to break bad with on the stage with your staff and with your cast and with your crew. TaNisha Fordham, welcome back to All Politics for Local. Tell us about the show that you're getting ready to share with us.
Yes, I am so excited to be here again. So thank you all so much for having me. We are geeked. Last year, we did a show called 12 Mo Angry Men. It was an adaptation of Reginald Rose's 12 Angry Men. And it was a kind of heavier show because it was about a Black teen who was shot by a white police officer, and 11 Black jurors and one white juror were deciding on the guilt or innocence of that officer. This year, we decided that there's so much going on in this world. And I just thought it's so important to claim hold of our joy. It was so interesting to me. The previous guest was talking about rest. I've been really vibing off of this website that's called the Nap Ministry. The owner is this woman whose name is Trisha. She's a Black woman and talks about rest as being revolutionary. And I think that joy is also revolutionary. To be Black and joyful and unapologetic about it and really excited in your skin and really invigorated by music, by the music that moves us. I'm currently also serving as the associate director on Company, which is a Broadway musical. And I've been on that Broadway musical since it opened in October. And I'm really enjoying that space, but I've been so empowered in this space to reimagine a musical, to write a musical where the musical inspiration is hip hop and gospel and funk and soul and neo soul. And so we're in rehearsal every day, really just living our best lives. I mean, essentially, we're living our best lives in rehearsal. And so I'm really excited for people to come and kind of join us on that wave of being joyful. It's a family show, appropriate for all ages. We were really intentional this year to make sure that it was going to be a space that everyone would enjoy and that would, like I said, just be empowering and uplifting and full of light and joy. The show is very quickly it's basically my life story, starting from when I was a child. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And so had a lot of kind of challenges and interesting experiences being the only Black girl in a lot of experiences. Then I went to HBCU. Then I competed for the Mrs. New Jersey United States pageant, won that, but was one of the only people of color when I went to the Mrs. United States pageant. So it's this reoccurring theme of like how we show up and that we are enough already. And that I love that it's happening in Newark, because Newark doesn't have a physical theater in the city, but we don't need a physical theater to make theater. We can do it. We can do it in non-traditional spaces. And I know a lot of people, whenever I say that, people are like NJPAC. But NJPAC is not specifically and uniquely only a theater space. They do dances and they do concerts. And so I'm talking about specifically unique to theater space, but we don't need it. As artists, we reimagine the spaces in the world that we live in. And so I'm super excited. I am really hopeful that everyone will come July 22nd, 29th.
So when you say that, are you referring to more like a black box theater, or what are you?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like a black box intimate space theater, and or what is considered like a regional theater space.
Okay.
And those are, those are very unique spaces. It's just like an artist. Obviously, a sculptor is very different than a painter. A painter is very different than someone who does welding. And so there are lots of performance spaces, but there's a unique something that happens inside of closed space, black box, and regional theater spaces. It's something that's very unique. And
I have an acting background. I know what you're talking about. The closest we came to that most recently was the last days of the African Globe Theater. And even that had some limitations. And Newark has an important theater history that people don't realize. We did have a community.
Isn't that is that upstairs at the? Do they still have that upstairs at the Symphony Hall? That theater? Do they have that?
That used to be the Theater of Universal Images. That's what you're referring to, right?
Okay.
And that was one of the that kind of went its own way. Even before the days of the African Globe Theater, but that's kind of what she was referring to. That are theater-based spaces, and the thing about it that's so profound about Newark is that Newark was one of the centers of the Black arts movement, and Eure, was not just having brothers stand up against the gangsters, with force of arms, being armed and loaded, and pushing for the ballot. Because we're a majority community, we need not be dominated by white gangsters anymore. But Eure was a legendary playwright.
Yeah, and this is the Newark Film Fest going on this week, and I don't know too if you're connecting with them, but I read today that it's the oldest film fest in the country, and that's interesting. Yeah, Black Film Festival, and that's that to have that that notoriety that we're the first and the oldest, that we need to do something with that. And so are you is your project connecting with any of the persons who are showing at the film fest? Are you connected with any of them?
So this specific project is actually live theater. So everything that we're doing is happening like live on stage. There's nothing that's previously recorded, but I am connected with the Newark Film Festival, and I'm connected with Kenneth Gifford and all of the people who are in charge of that festival, amazing people. And the city is partnering with us. It's the city of Newark, Mayor Baraka and the mayor's office that are actually the co-producers of this event. And this is their second year sponsoring it. So I'm so thankful for that. The thing that I really love too about this specific cast, all Newark natives, and the babies. My assistant director is a graduate of Newark Collegiate Academy. She's only 18 years old. She's a actual real life baby. Her name is Phaedra Foreman. And when I tell you all, because there's so much going on, it's high energy, there's music, there's dancing, we do quick wardrobe changes, there's food, we're interacting with the audience. We actually go out into the house several times throughout the show. There's dancing where we bring the audience up on stage. So there's just like kind of a lot of things happening. I'm also in the show. And so it's really important that my assistant director be able to kind of hold their own. And I'm thinking like, there are all of these like professional trained people with degrees, but I have never, and I mean that, seen anyone with the diligence and the attention to detail that I see in this baby. And so it's exciting to me to think about also, there's this like next generation of creatives in Newark who are taking the platform and doing the thing now. You should see her in the room. She'll give me notes She'll write the little notes down and say, hey, Miss T, did you think about this? Did you think about that? And that's kind of reflective of everyone in the cast. We're currently rehearsing at Newark Collegiate Academy. So a deep thank you to the principal, Charmaine Lewis. But the staff, there are several people who are part of the staff, so teachers and educators who are part of the production. And then a few of the students are also recent college graduates who came back to be a part of the production. So very much a community-based project. And I was intentional about that because I was so tired of being at Broadway every day and feeling still, even as the associate director, unseen in certain ways, feeling like the space wasn't a space that was curated specifically and intentionally with me in mind, and knowing that the spaces that are intended for us are needed, are necessary, and are valuable. And so, yeah, we're really excited about
well, you keep doing that because, you know, just in front of being in front of the camera, there's a lot, you know, to do behind the camera, because if you don't have that behind the camera, that in front of the camera is not going to be successful.
Right.
And I keep seeing, you know, you see Jordan Peele. I was reading his IMDb. Just like he's like, oh my goodness, he's been doing it for a long time. But just to see, I think there was a young person who got her start, you know, because somebody believed in her. It might have been on The View, who's been doing producing, and, you know, Whoopi might have just highlighted on, because this is their 25th anniversary, but it's a young woman back there doing her. And Whoopi said, you know, this is because she showed up, she was very, you know, she had it in her passion, and they let her just thrive. So it's very important to let, you know, like you said, this young lady giving you notes, and that we validate that, because who knows from, you know, from now to a couple of years where this young person will be, just because of this experience she's having now. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I also want to just highlight too, just because it's such a intentional space that you all have curated for like everyone that's a part of this conversation. We're also opening a theater, Newark Theater, inside of this high school this coming winter, so January 2023. We're super excited about it. The principal, there's a black box space inside of the school that has been traditionally used as the theater classroom, but the principal is letting us open it as like a community collaborative. So Newark Collegiate Academy is 129 Littleton Avenue. It's at the corner of 13th and Littleton. And so coming this winter, we're going to be opening that space to the community. And so for all of the creatives, whether they're writers, directors, actors, people who do behind the stage, lights, scenic design, costume design, all of those things, I would just love to continue to connect to local artists, so that we don't feel the need to cross over the Lincoln Bridge or the Lincoln Tunnel in order to get to Broadway, when we are Broadway right here. I'm
gonna challenge you to do that, because I want to say most of Newark schools have beautiful space. They all have theater. I want to say a lot of the schools have a lot of theater space. So there could be a play going on like every month, because I've been surprised every time I go into a North school at the theater space that they have. So I think it's been very intentional, and I want to thank for the Newark Board Ed that when they're building these schools, somebody has a love for art, because a lot of the schools have great theater space. So yeah, let's get this theater going in Newark, because I love it. Let me ask you this, TaNisha, how, if somebody wants to audition, do y'all have open auditions? How do y'all
Yeah, we have open auditions. We also do open calls for everything. Every time we've like established something. I'm also a fellow with Rutgers with the Express Newark program, which is in the Hanco building. And so I've done a lot of the projects out of there, whether they're auditions or casting calls, or our rehearsals are sometimes inside of that building. But the website is just enlightenedvisions.org, and that's ENLIGHTENED, and then visions, which is VISIONS.org. And that's where all of the projects, whether they're film projects or stage productions. Sometimes we do voice projects, smaller projects. We did a music video around the election season to just encourage people to get out to vote. And so, but whatever kind of projects we do, they're all posted there, as well as a way to contact us directly for collaboration. Oh no, you're gonna be great. You're gonna be great, John. You gotta do it. It's gonna be a vibe. Even if you're not keen on auditioning, send us a message, a conversation, a phone conversation. You know, that might get the job done.
And just for John to say that, just think of how many rappers have gone over to acting. You know, you have you have your 50 Cents who has a whole nother life
They're already
now.
doing it with that video.
You know, Snoop. I mean, a lot of actors. I mean, a lot of rappers have. You know, Ice Cube have really gone into full-fledged acting, and I mean, gotten acting coaches and have taken it to the next level. So, John, no, get out there, get out there.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm gonna do the next thing.
yeah.
TaNisha, one of my acting teachers actually taught Queen Latifah. So but when you're performing, you're performing. So I mean, that's a natural transitional space for a hip hop performer. You know, who's doing something and putting it on camera. It's just a natural space for them to go first. So absolutely. But I want to ask you this question.
Wait a second. Somebody just asked a question about you need crew operators or something like that.
Yes, I saw that. Please, is it Elihu? Do you think that's how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Elihu Israel.
Yeah, Elihu, please reach out. Seriously, we're always looking for people. I work with the same cinematographer most of the time. His name is Rashad Michael, but he's always looking for seconds. And we're actually filming this production, so reach out to me. We're all stronger together, always the case.
Yeah.
If you put your information in the chat, we'll put it up there so he can see it.
Okay, no problem. Yep.
Yeah, I put it in. I already put it in there. Mike's got to lift it up.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, but where I was going, and I know we got to wind down with you too, because I know you got to run soon. But to the point that you were making earlier about having to go someplace else to be seen, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us what you mean and what you're doing by TaNisha Fordham, the EGAT, because a lot of folks that I have that background, but a lot of folks don't know what the hell that is, just looking at it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing it to light. Sorry, you're going in and out a little bit, but I heard the question, and thank you so much for bringing that to light. So we changed the title to Snatch Your Free as a kind of like subtitle because there was so much confusion around an EGOT. But an EGOT is someone who has an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. Most recently, Jennifer Hudson joined the ranks of people who are EGOTs, but there are only 18 in all time. And of the 18, only 3 of them are Black people, and those are John Legend, Whoopi Goldberg, and now Jennifer Hudson. And so we cannot wait anymore. Not that we've ever been able to afford to wait, but we cannot wait anymore for someone to validate us. The play that I'm working for currently on Broadway has it received 5 Tonys. But the truth of the matter is, those Tonys are not my Tonys. I didn't write the show, I didn't direct the show. And there's always this kind of like, you're always waiting for someone to say, that's great, put the stamp of approval on that, repost it on Instagram, put it on Good Morning America. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need anybody's stamp of approval. And sometimes, most times, the messages that need to be heard the most aren't gonna get the stamp of approval because those messages are so unique. And they need to be heard, and they may represent a group of people that are not represented as well as they should be, or are underrepresented, or are misrepresented in some cases. And so this show is about that, and I'm so thankful that you asked that. This show says you already have your Emmy, your Grammy, your Oscar, your Tony. You have an Emmy, Grammy, and Oscar, and Tony by virtue of the fact that you are the only person who can say the thing that you're saying the way that you're saying it, with your swag and your hair and your voice and your energy. You're the only one. John, you're the only John. You're the only John Baldry. And so it's so important that like we're all showing up in our full selves and not waiting for someone to say that who you are is valid according to them. Because that may or may not ever happen. And you're going to always be walking around squandering your life, waiting for someone else to validate you. And so that's that is the reason why we entitled the show The East.
So TaNisha, as you leave and you go to your next, who's inspiring you? Is it your own music? So who
I'm
is
so glad you asked me. Actually,
here?
really fun when you asked the last one. Get my little piece of paper out. Okay, the people that are inspiring me right now: John Batiste. John Batiste is a vibe. I know I said this last time, and you all laughed at me. You're like, John Batiste is not hip hop. He's hip hop. Like, he's got hip hop soul. He's from New Orleans. He's like a funky vibe. I love John Batiste. So I said that last time. I'll say it again. I don't know if you all have heard of this new kind of newish rapper, Toby and Wigwe. He's a Nigerian guy, probably like early 30s. He raps with like his whole family. His wife raps with them. I think his sister is the person who does the producing of the music. All of their kids are always in the music. When I say kids, I'm talking about like 2-3-year-olds are always in the music videos, like bouncing around. And he has just thrown away any kind of concept or idea about what is the norm. He does what he wants to do in these music videos. He says what he wants to say. It is lack of form in terms of what hip hop is sometimes presented as. And so I applaud him for just showing up as he is.
Sounds like
and
it has a lot of form to me.
Now,
what's his name again? Say his name again.
Toby and Wigwe.
Okay.
Toby and Wigwe. And then the last two are Chance the Rapper, Chance the Rapper. And then the last one is Maverick City, which is actually a gospel group.
Yes, Maverick, yes.
Oh my gosh, right?
Okay. And I'm gonna take you over. Did just real quick, I just want to know, did were you impressed with Brandy on the BET? Did Brandy take you there? Did you jump out your seat? Or are you like
No, I mean,
yeah, okay.
I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I've got nothing negative to say about any artist.
No, yeah.
People are bearing their all out here. And Brandy has paved the way for so many people, and she's so good at so many things. Like, she can do everything. She can act, she can write, she can sing, she can dance.
Right.
Brandy's amazing.
Yeah, I just have to say BET kind of brought it back finally, so we were proud of them. Well, you keep doing what you're doing and just send us the information so we can keep it up on the page.
Okay.
Any information you want us to get out there. Anything in closing, Zaid? So I guess he's just gonna sit there and look cute. Okay.
Yeah, I've been having some connection issues. Can y'all hear me? Because I think I went out.
Oh, okay. All right, so you just like you said, anything.
Yeah,
okay. So
somebody put the Toby and Wigwe
that's our DJ. He got it up there. Okay, our DJ got it. Okay.
You will thank me later if you watch it. You'll thank me later.
All right, so send again anything you want us to post, just send it to us and we'll post it on the page. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you. See y'all.
So we got our next guest up. We have Joel and Zaid. Are you still? Joel, you might have to
me? Because I was going in and out. Okay.
I think
Shalom.
So Joe, you
just let young brother come in and just tell us who he is, right? Captain Joel with the Captain Joel with the let me get it right. Is Israel United for Christ?
Yes, Captain Joel of Israel United for Christ. Right, son? Yes, sir.
Go ahead and tell because I know I'm having trouble with this connect.
Okay, how's everybody doing tonight?
Go ahead and start telling folks about
everybody's good.
Okay, good. Just give me an introduction. People wonder who am I? Who is Israel United in Christ? So my name is Captain Joel of Israel United in Christ. For those of you that don't know who we are, we're a faith-based organization, which was created in 2003 by Bishop Nathaniel. And just to give you a brief overview of our organized nation. I won't say organization, but organized nation. Israel United in Christ, like I said, we teach according to the Bible that so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, and those scattered throughout the diaspora, and those native to North, Central, and South America are indeed the Israelites according to the Bible, are the biblical Jews. And one of our missions that we go around teaching, evangelizing is, according to the Bible, that we are the people of the Bible and that we have to keep God's laws. You still there?
We're here. You got the mic. We're waiting for you.
Yes.
We're giving you the mic. We're here.
Okay. I didn't see any picture. I thought I was just talking to myself. Okay, yeah. So
We're here.
Is to teach our people. Like I said, we go globally. We have over 40 congregations in the United States alone. We have about 4 or 5 congregations in Africa, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia. You have Nigeria. You have Uganda. We also have congregations in Europe, France, Russia, all over the United States. And the reason why we have congregations all over the United States, as well as throughout the diaspora, the so-called, they say the African diaspora, wasn't an African diaspora. It's the Israelite diaspora. Because when you read the Bible, our people to read the Bible from a religious eye. But the Bible has nothing to do with religion. The Bible, in actuality, is the historical records and the archaeological book of the Israelites. That's why when you look at our people really don't have an identity. And you look at all races and nations of people on earth, we're the only people that suffer slavery the way we've done, or people that's identity, nationality, our last names was changed, our nationality was changed, and it's 2022, and we're still searching for self. The Bible identifies us. The Bible gives us a purpose. The Bible gives us a self. So I'd like to open up with a scripture real quick. Matthew chapter 8, verse 32. Or John chapter 8, verse 32.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So the biggest question that we have in the Black community is, who are we? Where did we come from? Why were we put in conditions? Our slavery, our nationality was taken from us. Our mothers and ancestors were raped. We were forced to work the labor on the fields of the cotton in the plantations, the cotton fields. Why were we taken into America with ships? So, and like I said, the Bible gives us our answers to all the questions. Anybody have any questions so far?
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to show you, I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 4. Because you had Malcolm ask the question in terms of who are we? You have many Black activists during the 1960s looking for some type of sense of self. You have Marcus Garvey, you have Stokely Carmichael, and the biggest story behind our plight is nationality. Who are we? Why were the conditions? Why, out of everybody, even though everybody does wrong, why do we suffer more than anybody? Everybody does a crime, but for some reason, everybody doesn't do the same time. And the Bible gives us the answers. I'm going to read the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 4. It says, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee. When you look at our culture, we don't have a heritage. We don't have a culture. Our heritage, the heritage that we proclaim today is hip-hop culture. We're always looking for some type of culture that we try to coexist within a society that has identified who we are. Just like everybody has a culture, you could identify anybody by their landmass, their history. You can go back to their customs, their dress attire, the way they dress. But when it comes to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, we were identified. For example, they call us African Americans. African American comes from two different people. Africa means Leoscipius Africanus, and America, America Vespucci. So it says, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. So when you look at our history, we're the only race of people which heritage, which culture was discontinued. Meaning our nationality was changed. Why was our nationality changed? Think about it. Why did our ancestors go into slavery? Why did we suffer for 400 years? Why does our history start in slavery? Why do we have 1 month out of the year, well, in February, Black History Month, when we have one of the most richest history in society, in the world? We're some of the greatest people, but we're given 1 month out of the year. Because the Bible says, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee. So our heritage, our culture, our nationality, our last names, all of that was discontinued, and it was changed. because we broke God's laws. We made a covenant with God. And because we broke his laws, we were placed in the conditions that we are in America. The plight of the black man going into police brutality, slavery. You have mass incarceration. You have single-parented households. You have, I'll say, social economic injustices that's done to us. You have our political, like I said, our political exploitation, economic exploitation. Everything that you find wrong with our people is by divine design. It's because we broke God's laws. Let me ask you guys a question. What color is Jesus Christ according to the Bible? What would you say Jesus Christ's color is?
He was a black man.
Okay, you say he's a black man. What about everybody else on here?
Oh, absolutely.
So now, you got to ask the question, if Christ was a black man, why is it in the churches and all throughout America and globally are they teaching that Christ is a white man according to the Bible?
You asked it as a question?
Yeah, he's asking as a question.
Well, I would tell you that Elijah Muhammad called it subliminal seduction.
Subliminal seduction. Okay. I like that. Subliminal seduction. So think about it. If they lied to us about the image of Christ, what else have they lied to us about?
Everything.
Everything. So they also lied to us about who we are as a people, and everything surrounding our plight in America is based upon us being discontinued from our power, our source, our stream. And that's why we cleave to everything else, everything that doesn't pertain to who we are as a people. And that's why our people are involved in gang activity. Because if you can take a purpose from a people, if you can remove them from their power or change and alter the image, you have the ability and the power to paint your own image of who they are. And that's why they paint our images in the media. They paint our images through the music. They paint our image in how our women should be, how our men should be. And that's why you see a shift within our culture. Whereas in the 1960s and prior to that, you have black powerful men that stood up for the community, that were leaders in the community, that looked for solutions. So our history pretty much has been whitewashed in our minds, and our intellect has been whitewashed to the point that there's no unity. There's no structure in our community. It's because it's a lack of knowledge that the Bible says. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So Israel United Christ, through the Bible, we look to, like I said, we go through the streets and we evangelize, showing our people who we are, to bring them back, to show them that we're the Israelites according to the Bible. And not only that, being the Israelites, that we have to keep God's commandments. We have to, and keeping God's commandments, meaning you have to marry that wife, that lady, that woman that you decide to sleep with. Guess what? The Bible says that if you lie with her, you got to die with her. You got to lie with the woman that you lay with. You're supposed to take care of. You're supposed to have a job. You're supposed to have a house before you have sex with that woman. And our woman, we teach our women, before you lay down with a man, know the man that you lay down with. Because that man that you create babies with, you got to make sure that man's going to be able to properly take care of you and your children, so that you're in a protective environment to raise your children, to be a reflection of your husband, and not the way society is teaching you to raise the children. So I just want to go through a few things. I want to start at Deuteronomy 28, because many people would say, okay, how do you guys know that you're the Israelites? And what is the importance of it? I'm going to show you. Because people say that the Bible is a religious book. The Bible is not a religious book. In Israel United Christ, we're not a religious organization. The Bible is a historical book of the Israelites, the people that broke God's commandments and was put in slavery for breaking God's commandments. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So Moses is prophetically speaking to the Israelites, saying, but it shall come to pass. Meaning in the future, it's going to come to pass, if the Israelites did not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep all his commandments, that all these curses will come upon them and overtake them as a people. No matter where they go globally, they'll be known to be a cursed people. You'll be able to identify them based upon the curses. No matter what they put their hands to, it wouldn't prosper. It will always fail. There'll always be oppressed people. They'll always be on the bottom of society. Now, verse 16. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. So I want to focus on the first part. When it says, cursed shall thou be in the city. I used to be a teacher in Newark, New Jersey. Not sure if you're familiar with Belmont Runyon. And I taught in different school systems, and you look at Newark school systems, Newark school system is not looked at as the best. Like I said, and Belmont Runyon was one of the worst schools within, I think it's the South Ward is in, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the South Ward. Yeah, so one of the worst.
Belmont Runyon, the South Ward, yes.
Yes. So it's one of the worst in the South Ward. And a lot of times you can see the condition of a people based upon the children that's coming up in any school system, because they always structure the prisons based upon, and I believe in third grade, they base the private prison institutions on the direction of the children in third grade. They could be able to, like I said, they could see the children, the direction they're going in, and base the prison based upon that, because they understand it starts from a young age. So the Bible says in verse 16, cursed shall thou be in a city. So the Israelites will be cursed in every major city. That's why it's no coincidence whether you go in Newark, New Jersey, you have the good part of Newark, and then you have what they say the part where it's heavy ridden with crime. No, whether it be Newark, Philadelphia, you have South Philadelphia, which is beautiful. It's blessed with, it has the air quality is different. There's less crime. There's more police presence. The neighborhood is cleaner. But when you go to North Philly or West Philly, the crime is astronomical, as well as the South Ward of Newark. The crime is high, and Newark actually is probably in the 10th percentile within the United States as one of the most violent cities. So the Bible says we will be cursed as a people within a city. We'll be cursed with a lack of education. We'll be cursed with a crime-ridden community. We'll be cursed with environmental racism. What I mean by environmental racism, meaning your community and the area, the environment that you live in, there'll be lack of trees. You go to Philadelphia, it's ridden with trash, drugs, crime. You have gun stores, liquor stores, crack all over the communities. You have abortion clinics. You have police brutality. You have, and also the abortion clinics primarily is within the Black community if you look at it geographically. So the Bible says, cursed shall we be in a city, and cursed shall we be in the field. When the Bible says cursed shall it be in the field, meaning our ancestors, anybody can speak about it. Our ancestors historically were cursed to pick cotton in the fields. Sugarcane, tobacco, you have rubber. So Moses is giving us a vivid depiction prophetically of what would happen to the Israelites if they broke God's laws. One of the curses would be that they'll be cursed in the city. Another curse is that they'll be cursed in the fields. So now I'm going to jump to verse 32. It says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall look, and fare with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. So also our sons and our daughters shall be given unto another people. What people did that happen to? That happened to Black people, Latino people. Our sons and daughters were taken from us in slavery, and they were placed in an auction block. I'm not sure if you've seen the movie 12 Years a Slave. Anybody see that movie? Roots.
Yes.
Yes. So within these movies, they show you our conditions when our sons and our daughters were taken from the mothers, the women. You can see that in 12 Years of Slaves. You can see that in Roots. You can see that in Underground Railroad. when they literally took our sons and daughters away from the mothers, away from the parents, and they separated and sent them to another plantation. So it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall look and fill with longing for them all the day long. And when thy sons and daughters were taken away from the mother, our eyes were filled with longing for them all the day long. Because why? When you have your sons and daughters taken away from you, and you can have no power, economic power, nor military power to get them back, you start to feel sorrowful and feel for them, because of you have no power to retrieve your son and daughter. Neither do you have the resources to get them back. And that's similar to today. Like I said, we're not only focused on in slavery, but today you have what is called DIFUS. If you discipline your child the wrong way, the DIFUS will come to take your child from you. You also have at the borders, you have a lot of Latino kids, sons and daughters, children were taken away from them at the borders, and a lot of them are lost. So that's not only historical, meaning that happened to our ancestors when the children were taken away. Even with us, you don't see that happen to anybody else when his sons or daughters are taken away from them because they discipline them. I'm going to jump to now verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. So we will become in an astonishment, meaning a shock, an amazement. How do we go from the top? If you look at our history, we have some of the richest histories. Prior to the 1960s, when you have some of the great civil rights activists, such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, you have the Black Panthers, you have Fred Hampton, you had Marcus Garvey. Prior to that, like I said, we were some of the great kings of Europe. I mean, King Arthur, your King James, your Shakespeare's, your Mozart's, your Beethoven's, the castles that you see in Europe, England, France, Russia, those castles were established by our ancestors. You have the Knights of the Round Tables, that was our people. So when our people, when they see us in terms of how low we fell, we become in an astonishment. How were these the greatest people, the kings of the earth? How were they the King Davids? How were they the King Solomons? How were they the descendants of the Israelites, but now they're sagging their pants, walking around, they're killing each other. Women are aborting their children. There's high crime in the neighborhood. They're on drug addiction, alcohol abuse. So now they even have buses that tour through Black neighborhoods just to see how, and they don't have buses tour through any other neighborhood, but you see them in Harlem. You ask yourself a question, why do they have buses touring through the Black community? It's because it's a shock. It's an astonishment. It's an amazement of how far we fell as a people. So it says, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. A byword is to be called outside of your God-given nationality. A byword is being called African American. A byword is be called Haitian, Jamaican, Latino, Hispanic, Native American Indians, Puerto Rican. The reason why these bywords were being called outside of a God-given nationality. We're the only people whose national. Why would they change our nationality? What's the secret? What's the mystery behind our identity being changed? What's the mystery and the secret behind our nationality being changed? Our names being changed. I'm going to jump to verse 46 now.
Hey, Joel, I want to ask you a question. So are we having a dialogue or a monologue? Because it seems like you're giving a monologue.
Oh, that's what I was waiting for, interaction. But nobody said anything. So I was waiting
I think because Zaid is having problems connecting. But here's a question of a statement. Principal Kafeli states black on black killing is not the masses of our people, my brother. It's a very small segment of our population. White people kill white people too. And I guess that people kill who they're closest to and the communities they're closest to. It just so happens that they always advertise black. To every answer they give a black, the statistics on black crime, especially when it comes to our community. But as Principal Caffelli was saying, that people, white people, let me put it back up. It's white people kill white people too. And that's basically people, and I'm sure if you go into a Latino community, you'll see those numbers. And it is high, if you're looking at those numbers as well. So people kill who they're closest, the people they can get closest to, basically.
Let me just ask.
Sorry,
Can y'all hear me?
Okay, you back?
Yeah,
I was kind of curious. I'll say it feels like I'm talking to myself. And interaction.
He was in the background having problems.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the interest of time, also too. I mean, because we gotta get ready for the next segment. We almost out of here. I want you to sum up for this audience the distinction of Israel United for Christ and what your most important programs are right now that you need the people to know about, and then we're gonna have to sum up.
Okay. Like I said, Israel United Christ, we teach that so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indian that we indeed are the Israelites according to the Bible, and that we teach God's laws and the plight of our people and the conditions that we suffer in today, that we live in. Our history, our oppressive history is by divine design. I mean, it's been designed that way because, like I said, when we broke God's laws, he pretty much laid our history. He laid prophetically what we know as history today was Bible prophecy. He laid it out before us. Everything that you know that we go through as a community has been documented in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 to 68. It reclassifies as well as re-identifies us. And all the issues that we have in a community is written there, and it shows us also the answers.
So, Joe, would you say that you guys keep all of the laws of God?
Yes, we keep all the laws to the best of our ability. Meaning the only laws, like I said, that we don't keep is the sacrificial laws. Like, for example, we have dietary laws, meaning the foods that we're supposed to eat and the foods we're not supposed to eat. Like, there's laws against eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobsters, which are bottom feeders or scavengers. That's why, you see our people, we have a lot of health problems, gout, high blood pressure, and it goes to eating unclean foods. We also have ceremonial laws, meaning laws, high holidays that God gave us, such as Passover, you have new moons, you have feasts of dedication, you have the Sabbath days. So we also have moral laws, how to deal with our brothers, how to deal with our women, how to deal with our children, how to deal with one another. So yes, we keep all the laws to the best of our ability.
Do you know how many laws God has?
Well, people say there's 613, but like I said, a lot of the laws, like say, for example, if I keep thou shalt not commit adultery, there's laws that extend from not commit adultery, meaning there's when you read thou shalt not commit adultery goes to having threesomes, goes to having sex with animals, goes to homosexuality, lesbianism. There's a list of bylaws that extend from thou shalt not commit adultery. Now, if I don't commit adultery, I keep that law. And rather than having sex outside of marriage, and I marry that woman, I'm keeping a plethora of those laws that extends from thou shalt not commit adultery. So there's many different laws. So people look at all the commandments and say, oh, there's so many commandments that you can't keep. If you keep one, you're keeping a whole bunch of the commandments. God will put. Go ahead.
But have you heard that because so people in the body of Christ believe that we're under grace and we're no longer living under law, and the reason they say that, Brother Joel, is because if you say there are 613 laws, and if you violate one of the laws, then the Bible says then you violated them all. That's why the religious scholars in the Black community would say that we're no longer under the law, but we're under grace now. And so if you just told me the question I asked you, do you keep all of the laws? And you said for the most part. Well, then it
Yeah,
sounds
no,
like
we
to
do
me,
keep the laws, but to
let
the
me
best of
finish,
our ability. Doesn't mean
right,
that
right,
you're not going to make mistakes.
Brother Joe.
Yes.
I'm not
Mhm.
prosecuting you, brother.
Of
I'm
course
just
not.
I'm just having a conversation with
Yeah,
you,
of course,
simply
of course.
saying that if you violate one of the laws and you say, "Well, I'm doing it to the best of my ability," well, we all are, and that's why the religious scholars in the Black community said that's why grace came, right? So grace
Well,
came because the only one who could keep all 1613 of those laws was the Black Jesus. He did it, but
well,
because
not
he
so much.
came, I'm having a conversation with you. It's not a dialogue right now, right? So and I'm gonna do that. And my brother, you can respond, right?
Yeah, of
But
course,
I
of
don't
course.
want to I don't want to get into a long dialogue because it is
Hmm.
now time for my brother to your left. It is his segment that we have to move on to. I'm just simply saying that if religious scholars in the Black community say that if you because they believe we live under grace, they simply saying if our brothers in the Israelite community don't keep all 1613 laws, but then they say to the best of my ability, if they violate one, then they violated them all. That's all.
Well, like I said, and that's why, like I said, that's a dangerous doctrine to push, saying that we're not under the laws. When you're saying that, you're saying that we could kill, we could steal. Grace was given to us, mercy, and contrary to animal sacrifice, because animal sacrifice, there was no repentance. So anytime Paul says that we're not under the law, is referencing the law of animal sacrifice. Because if you're a homosexual, if you're a thief, if you're a killer, you should be put to death. But under Christ, you're given that mercy now. If you're a thief, if you're a killer, if you're a homosexual, you have the opportunity now, that grace to get yourself together now. Whereas under Moses, the law of animal sacrifice, there was no grace. It was death, death, death. And the reason why I said that's dangerous, because you're telling a people that's already in a lower state that it's okay to break God's laws. That's pretty much what you're saying, that we're under grace. Very dangerous, because the law is thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not
Joe,
steal.
Captain Joe, like you
Yes.
said, we're into the next segment and we're going to turn it over to
Okay.
our DJ, but we're going to let him. We have one question we ask all of our guests, and we're going to ask our DJ to ask that question of you before you leave. DJ Rhino?
Peace, brother Joe. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well, doing well. Being that this is it's considered a political hip hop radio show. What we always like to do when we have guests on, especially for the first time, we like to ask them, who in the hip hop community, who in hip hop music, would you say inspires you to do what you do? Keeps you going.
Okay. Well, we have our own artist, Original Royalty. We have the Benjavites. We have Divine Dialect. That's we have our own music that we have established in our community. So I'll say Original Royalty, our artist, inspires us. It gives us the positive message that we need to keep going, and that affects us mentally. That's not poisoning our mindset.
You said
So
Original Royalty?
Yeah, Original Royalty. We have it on YouTube. Yeah, one of the brothers that reached out to you. He's one of the artists in Original Royalty named Jalil.
Okay. I'll definitely look out for him.
Yes. So Original Royalty, we can give you some of our music. We have many different artists that inspires us to keep going.
Okay, well, thank you, Zaid.
That's what's up.
Zaid, can you come back on and can you close out? Or you can't speak, and then so
you're
well, he's having a problem. So, Captain Joel, we thank you for coming on. Every fourth Friday we have our panel, and we call disciples, and it's a interfaith panel. You should you should listen, and so maybe we can invite you back in and have a conversation. And so with spirituality meets intersects, I should say, with our day-to-day, whether it be politics, what's going on in the community. You should feel free to come back. And it happens every fourth Friday, and it's the disciple segment, and it starts at 6:00. Okay, I mean, come back every Friday, but that one will probably be a special interest to you. Okay.
Okay, that'll be great. Definitely
Okay.
appreciate it.
And it starts at 6 p.m. on the fourth Friday.
Okay, this our website, if anybody wants to know, is www.israelunite.org. I
And
appreciate it.
put it in the chat, and we'll put it across the bar. Put it in the chat,
Okay,
and
I'll put it in the
we'll play this. We'll roll it on the bottom. Okay.
and I appreciate for having me on.
Okay.
Definitely a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you for
Brother Joe.
coming, and come back
Appreciate you,
again.
brother.
Peace, brother.
All right.
brother. Peace,
Okay.
brother.
Take care.
DJ Rhino, what's going on? What's going on?
What's happening? What's happening? How y'all?
What's
Y'all
going
been?
on?
It's been a couple of weeks. I ain't
Hey,
been a
Rhino,
couple of
what
weeks.
happened to you last week, man?
You with the family, you said.
Man, the
Yeah,
last
family.
couple of weeks, I've been just dealing with family. You know what I mean? Just
okay.
just handling business with the fam. You know, I even had to take a break from my Saturday thing that I usually do on Twitch. I'll probably return late August with my Twitch sets that I was doing with the shit. But yeah, I've just been taking a break, man, just trying to deal with family and, you know, handle business, you know. But real quick, you know, I wanted to well, first off, Donna, because I know how you are. I know you wanted to get into the BET Awards.
Yeah.
So the BET Awards, just some quick highlights that stood out for me. Kirk Franklin and Little Baby.
Right.
There was something about that them coming together and doing what they did that really stood out for me. You know, my thing tonight is based on growth. And to see the growth of Lil Baby and where he was the street hustler rapper, but you know when the George Floyd thing took place, he ended up putting out a song called The Bigger Picture, you know, and it really set him in a different light from the rest of the rappers that were in his generation, you know what I'm saying? Because he really had something to say. And then you know he did this thing with Kirk Franklin. So you know it's just good to see Lil Baby be able to grow and go into other avenues and you know do other things with his music instead of just you know staying focused on one thing, you know, the street hustler rapper kind of thing. You know what I mean? He's branching out into other things, and that's a great thing to see. I love to see that. Also, speaking of growth, I don't know if you guys know about this young group. It's a 4-man group called Coast Contra. I know.
Wait, you leaving the BET? You still on the BET, or you leaving the BET?
Well, I was leaving the BET. Oh, matter of fact, you know what? Let's go back to the BET.
I just want to say one thing. Two things. Brandy killed it for me. She just I felt like Ray J in the audience. He was like, "That's my sister." That's how I felt.
Yeah.
But
what did she do on BET? What did she do?
Oh,
she performed a song with Jack Harlow.
Yeah, but her presentation
that Rockman said that he liked. That's Jack Harlow, and Brandy did a song with. And what's funny is that originally
who said they like Jack Harlow?
Remember Rockman?
What
was it?
Oh yeah.
And he said that's who he was listening to.
I could take what it's saying is I could take you first class.
Yeah. But originally they had some kind of beef before Brandy and Jack Harlow. They had some kind of beef. Yeah, and so them coming together on stage, that's why that was such a big thing, because they squashed whatever beef they had.
But her performance was second. Her performance was good. But I have to say, I was very proud of Puffy too. Puffy and the silhouette with him dancing and everything. I just think BET stepped up their game, and even the whole format to even where it closed out with gospel is kind of old school. And I was like, wow, you know, so it was really a good show. But Puffy's the tribute to Puffy and him getting acknowledged, I think that was really a good tribute. And we had just been talking about Puffy.
Yeah, because it was good. It was good to see Jodeci up there and everybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Locks, you know what I mean? It was good to see that. I mean, I wanted to see more folks because I wanted to see Total and you know what I mean? But it was, and Mary was, you know, it's always dope to see Mary up there doing her thing. So that was good too. I wasn't big on Diddy's speech though. He said a whole lot, and it was just, for me, it was kind of empty. Like he didn't say enough, especially when it came down to Kim Porter. You know, he was trying to salute Kim Porter and all of that. I think he just could have said a whole lot more. It just didn't come off as genuine. I don't know if maybe he was He was on one that he was
I
feeling
thought
himself
he
that
was
night.
really emotional because he was crying. At
He
one
was
point, he was
hyped
crying.
up. He was definitely hyped up. He was hyped up,
Yeah.
but I didn't. You know, I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't genuine enough. There was something about the speech that wasn't genuine. The tribute was dope though. The tribute was definitely dope. But yeah. So that's my thing on BET. But I wanted to go to Coast Contra because Coast Contra is this young group. It's a 4-man group. One of them's from Philly. I think 2 of them's from Cali. Another one's from like Colombia or something like that. But they're young guys, and they have so much of that energy that we came up with in hip hop back in the 90s, like the early and mid 90s. You know, back when like Leaders of the New School and Busta Rhymes and all of them were still together. Like they have that energy, you know, and they started off doing freestyles. You would see them on YouTube and they were freestyling over an industry beat or whatever, but their lyrical content and their flows and what they're talking about, like these dudes are real lyrical, and they've been blowing up just over the months. They've really been, you know, making their way. They just ended up on somebody's TV show or award show or something recently, and but the name is Coast Contra. Look out for Coast Contra. You can pull up anything of theirs on YouTube, and I really enjoy these brothers. They remind me of me and my group, Hidden Descent 5X, when we were there at their age back in the 90s, because their energy is just so powerful, and what they're saying, you know, the lyrics are like, it's almost spiritual. Like they're talking about, you know, just being in tune with the universe through, you know, through themselves and things like that, man. Like they really get into real consciousness in these lyrics, you know what I'm saying? So definitely check out Coast Contra. They just got Ciara just did a song with them, which is what's dope about it. Like these other artists, these other established artists are now picking up on Coast Contra and they're pulling them along. So, you know, it's good to see that. But Ciara has a song with them called Jump. So you can check out the video for that on YouTube as well. Also, speaking of growth, Method Man was on Math Hoffa. Math Hoffa is a battle rapper who now has his own podcast. And it's, you know, set up in a barbershop and all of that. So you really get like some barbershop talk. But Method Man was on there recently, and, you know, he was talking about his growth and just, you know, realizing mistakes that he made in his, you know, in his youth when he was coming up in the rap game and all of that. And he put out a public apology to Destiny's Child. He apologized to Beyonce, Michelle, and Kelly because he said that he was in a bad space back in the days when he first met them. Well, not when he first met them, but when he was being introduced to them by one of his producers, Rockwaller. And he said he kept his hand, you know, they extended their hand to him, and he said, go ahead with that Hollywood bull and all whatever. And he was in a bad space at this time. You know, he was talking about how he was dealing with drugs and depression and all that kind of thing. But he issued a public apology on the podcast to Destiny's Child, and Beyonce's mom even chimed in and you know, gave him love in return for it. So that was a beautiful thing.
So that just it's never too late to say I'm sorry or I apologize.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Make up for your wrongs. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
More growth. Jay-Z. Jay-Z was just recently on Kevin Hart's podcast. Kevin Hart has a podcast now that you can catch the clips or episodes on YouTube. It's called Heart to Heart. He just recently had an episode with Jay-Z on it. Now, you know, anybody that knows, Jay-Z rarely does interviews. And any of the interviews that I've seen Jay-Z in, even recently, you know, a lot of times Jay-Z seems limited. Like he's limited himself. He's holding himself back. He has to watch his words. He doesn't want to say too much. He doesn't want to say anything that's going to draw any kind of energy, the wrong energy or anything like that. But I don't know. So with this interview, I don't know if it's his relationship with Kevin Hart or what it was, but Jay-Z just seems to be real loose, laid back, very expressive. You know, he's talking about his career and his own growth. And get a chance to see it. It's about an hour long. Get a chance to see it. It's Heart to Heart. Kevin Hart interviewing Jay-Z. But you know, Jay-Z, he talks about his lyrics because a lot of people say that, you know, he got more conscious as he got older, which is true. But he also stated that he was talking about certain things in his very first album. He was trying to bring enlightenment to certain people. He was trying to bring enlightenment to certain issues and things. even in his first album, Reasonable Doubt. So it's not like, you know, he was all about just hustling and drugs and getting that money. You know, he was trying to give you the both sides of the game since the beginning, and he explained that too. You know, he was talking about how you know, things that happen in life, they don't happen to you, they happen for you. It's all about your perception and how you see things that happen in your life. You know what I mean? So it was just reflective. The whole interview was very reflective on who he is, and you know, it was good to see. So check that out. Also, again, I have to say this. Big ups, big strong power salute to Styles P. Styles P from the Locks. I don't know if any of y'all saw the clip or any of the footage, but Styles P, right in his hometown of Yonkers, he stepped in where sister was getting rough.
Repeat that because you froze a little. He did what?
So in Yonkers, the police had this sister. They were trying to handcuff this sister. And they roughing her up, had her on the ground. And Styles P, and I believe it was his wife who was holding up the phone. I'm not sure, but Styles P came in and he actually jumped in to try to help the sister. Now he didn't put his hands on anybody, anything like that. Matter of fact, he kept his hands up the entire time he was speaking to the cops. But he jumped in and he started calling the cops. He started calling the cops out of the out of their name or whatever. Now that is actually a dangerous thing, and he said later on in another clip that, you know, he didn't like the way he approached certain things, but I mean, you know, the way he approached it, certain things he did, but it was still a good thing that he jumped in, because when he called the cop out of his name, the cop actually jumped up off of the girl and went towards Styles P. Now Styles P kept his hands up and he kept talking to the cop, but that was less pressure on the sister. And so it was kind of, I don't know if that was strategic, if he did that on purpose like that, but it was a good move because it was less pressure on the sister. And just big ups to Styles P for stepping in, because a lot of people don't step in. A lot of people just stand there with their phones, which is cool to catch it, but you know, we got to start doing something, man, besides just standing there. So big ups to Styles P.
Rhino, I wanted to ask you about just what's going on with poor righteous teachers. I have so much love for them. I know we got to round up. Maybe we could talk about poor righteous, and we could do that next week. Well, I just need to know where's poor righteous teachers. What's going on with them?
I haven't heard anything much about poor righteous. I know Wise Intelligent is always on his game. He stays bringing the consciousness to the people. You can check him out on Instagram. That's all he does, is bring consciousness to the people. But as far as the group Poor Righteous Teachers, I haven't heard anything recent about you know, any releases or anything like that. But Wise Intelligent always on top of what's going on out here.
Okay, so maybe we can do something, you know, since they local.
And then real quick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because
right
we're getting the wine.
So
up.
also, you know, there was. Yeah, we're gonna wind it up. Just real quick, I want to throw this out there. Nas has a new song with DJ Premier. DJ Premier just put out this new album. It's called Hip Hop 50 Volume 1. It features Nas, Slick Rick, Lil Wayne, Run the Jewels, Rhapsody, Remy Ma, and a few others. Man, it's and there's a song with Nas and DJ Premier called Beat Breaks. So check that out. Conway from Griselda and Funkmaster Flex have been beefing. It's basically over Funkmaster Flex, and I've heard this argument in a lot of areas now. Funkmaster Flex is not moving aside and making space and time for new young blood to come in to do what he's doing. And Conway has expressed his frustrations towards that. Pete Rock has even jumped in. So stay tuned, because you know it's still going on. Stay tuned and see what happens out of that. But basically, it is time for some new young blood to come into these positions where the older heads have been holding it down. And we still need the older heads for their wisdom and their guidance. So we still need them there. But, you know, it's time to make some time and space for the young bloods to come in too.
But the problem with that
is that I
just
want to throw that stuff out to y'all.
But the problem with that, Rhino, is that those older heads aren't really creating spaces for those younger places, and then they don't want to leave the field.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's exactly what's going on, and that needs to happen, because some people don't, people don't want to get out of their positions. They get comfortable, right. And they want to stay there forever. But
that's the same thing that goes on in politics.
He needs to stand down. He needs to fall back and let some brothers up in there, some sisters up in there, and let them do their thing. Because at this point, he's not even playing the stuff that the people want to hear anymore. People have been talking about Griselda and Conway and Benny the Butcher and West Side Gun. They're talking about them for a while now. Like they're getting praise from a lot of the big dogs and a lot of the icons in hip hop. And Funkmaster Flex is, he's just sticking to Cardi B and whoever else. So we'll see what happens.
Ed, to your point, is that something culturally that we have to learn to do better as a culture, how to pass the torch and prepare our young people, and don't, die in office and then try to get it together. You know what I'm saying? Die in whatever respective space we're in, and instead of, mentoring and bringing people along, we just, I don't know. Is that something we need to deal with culturally?
Indeed. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yep, we do. So while we have final statements, and let's close it out. Zaid, we'll start with you. Any final statements?
Hear me?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah, it's been crazy. Tomorrow is the it's going to be a street naming, 202 Bay Street, Staten Island, where Eric Garner was killed 8 years ago. That street is going to be renamed after Eric Garner at 1 p.m. Staten Island. I'm trying to get out there. I was trying to get Brother Carey to come back on this week. We were already overbooked. That's happening like right away. I want folks to look forward to it. Yesterday was the anniversary of us losing Sandra Bland, and it's hard to believe it's been 7 years already. So I just wanted to lift her name up also. And tomorrow is the 75th birthday for none other than my beloved big sister, the Black Panther Party, Assata Shakur. Happy birthday, Assata. Miss you, Queen.
Happy birthday.
Right. Look forward to seeing you one day soon.
Donna?
Only thing, the Newark Film Fest, I believe, is winding up today, and I'm sure there is some format you can go back and just see what was there. One of the movies that was on, they played this week, Rhino, was The Girl on the IRT. They said it's like 30 years old, so I'm going to. Then there was a couple of things that I was really interested in too, but very proud of North Film Fest.
Rebellious Life of Rosa Parks. I missed that.
Yes, they did. They opened up with Rosa Parks, and then they did one with a Haitian sister from Little Miami who's a nurse, and just her day to day. So a couple of good things going on, and then I'll see if I can find the link, and I'll send it over to Zaid so we can post it. Hopefully, we can go back and watch some of these films.
Send it to Jonathan. I don't have the posting access to the all politics.
Shout out to thank you for Jonathan. We miss you. Yeah, Jonathan. Hey. That's it, Ed. Got it.
I think Ed froze.
Is Ed froze?
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
Yeah, it looks like he froze.
Okay, yeah. So Mike, so we're at number one. Thank you for everybody, all our guests. Zaid, you want to shout our guest name? Just thank all our guests who are here tonight.
Oh man, we missed Mayor Baraka, because this was his segment this particular week. So we look forward to having him back as soon as the segment next comes up. There's so much going on. Of course, his hands are quite busy too. Intergenerational segment with Kim Gaddy, Mark, and Comesañas. We missed Keisha. Keisha was supposed to join that segment. Keisha Eure. It was a good intergenerational conversation on Newark since the rebellion '67. TaNisha Fordham, who didn't get a chance to say, is actually teaches in the Newark school system. right? Young theater arts worker premiering a new play, Snatch Your Free, which is going to be played live next Friday and the following Friday at Mulberry Commons, the park, the stage park area on Mulberry. Her last play there, also. I don't know much about the folks, the young brother from Israel United Christ. That's Brother Jonathan's guest, and so I apologize that I froze up too. Me and Jonathan did talk about him a little bit, I apologize to my brother James Carey because I wanted to have Carey to come back on and talk about the street naming for Eric Garner. Brother Carey works closely with Gwen Carr. Eric Garner's mother was considered the mother of the movement against police brutality. So, forward is emotion.
Okay, and so Rhino, so you will not be doing radio up until August.
Yeah,
so,
sometime late August. August, I'll be back doing the shakeup on Twitch. But right now it's just you'll see me here.
So number one, so thank you everybody, and you see us next week, same that time, same that channel, 6 p.m. We'll be here. Thank you, and we're off the air.
Peace.
All right.